Hey guys, I've been digging into this Nancy Guthrie case for weeks now. You know, the mom of that Today show host who's just vanished. Like, 1 minute she's there in her nice house in Tucson, and the next, gone. It's been over a month since that night in late January 2026, and honestly, the whole thing just keeps pulling me in deeper. So here's the question I can't stop thinking about. Could there be something more to the family dynamics here? Like with her daughter Annie, son-in-law Tommaso, and this buddy of his Evans. Not saying it's true, but the connections are really intriguing. What do you guys make of this? I started with the basics, the timeline of that night, January 31st, 2026, when Tommaso drops her off after dinner, and then poof, she's gone by morning. I pulled up the FBI poster first thing, right? It's right there on their site with her picture. This 84-year-old lady, brown hair, blue eyes, 5'4", about 150 pounds. She's got health stuff too, like a pacemaker, and needs her meds every day. The poster spells it out, last seen at her home in Catalina Foothills, that upscale area in Tucson. And here's the thing, no forced entry, no big signs of struggle from what they've said. That got me thinking, who could get in without breaking anything? Someone she knows, or someone tipped off by someone she knows. So, I kept going, checking the press releases from the FBI. There's this one from early February 2026 where they release photos and video. Oh man, that video, it shows this guy, some dude with a gun, messing with the camera at her front door around 1:45 to 2:30 in the morning on February 1. He's got this black Ozark Trail backpack, the kind you get at Walmart, 25 liters. Height looks like 5'9" to 5'10", average build, wearing gloves and a mask. What gets me is how the camera footage shows this guy tampering, and Evans' height kinda matches, but wait, that's just a hunch. I mean, Dominic Evans is Tommaso's bandmate, right? They've been playing in this rock band called Early Black since 2007, met on Craigslist or something. Evans is a teacher too, elementary school, and he's got this old minor theft charge from 1999, stole a computer and watch while drunk, nothing huge but still. He only met Nancy once, from what I've read, but through Tommaso, connections like that make you wonder. And then there's Annie, Nancy's oldest daughter, married to Tommaso. She's a mom herself, lives nearby, and from the bits in the news, she seems close to her mom. But here's where it gets wild. Early on, there were SWAT teams at Annie's house. Like right after the disappearance. Why? The sheriff cleared the family pretty quick in February, said they're cooperative, but that doesn't stop the questions, does it? I gotta be honest with you, when I saw those reports in places like the Arizona Daily Star, it hit me different. Like, is there some family stuff bubbling under? Maybe money. That house in Catalina Foothills, I looked up property values there, and it's no joke. Homes go for $1 to $2 million easy, prime spot near Hacienda del Sol Road. Nancy living alone, her health not great, could there be inheritance talks? Or pressure to sell? Not accusing anyone, but in these cases, motives like that pop up all the time. What I found was, digging through those local reports, like from Tucson.com, they mention how the neighborhood got chaotic with media and YouTubers swarming. They even set up one-way traffic and no parking zones in mid-February to keep things under control. And the FBI bumped the reward to $100,000, then the family added more to make it $1 million for her safe return. That's huge, right? But still no breakthrough as of mid-March 2026. The sheriff's out there saying they believe it's targeted, they think they know the motive but won't say, and Nancy's probably still alive. That optimism is good, but it leaves so many gaps. The crazy thing is, all these ransom notes coming in, most fake. One guy from California got busted for sending a bogus one demanding Bitcoin. Families dealing with that mess on top of everything. And Evans, he got questioned for hours, released, but his kid had to stay home from school because of the crowds. His tattoo. Some folks online are saying it matches something in the video where the glove slips a bit on the wrist. Not confirmed, FBI hasn't said, but really makes you pause. What do you guys think? Am I the only one who finds this weird? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Does this make sense to you? And this is important, let's dive into the night it all went down. But first, I had to cross-check everything. FBI site, Pima County Sheriff's updates, even those pressers where they talk about the DNA from the gloves, not matching anyone in the database. But they're doing genealogy now. It's a process, slow, but what if it points somewhere unexpected, like to a relative or friend? Not saying it will, but the questions keep stacking. This case, guys, it's got layers. I started simple, just reading the basics, but now I'm hooked on these family ties and what they might mean. The house, the money, the band buddy, it's all swirling. So, stick with me as we unpack this step by step. What gets me is how a quiet night turns into this nightmare, and why Nancy. Hey, if you've got theories on Annie, Tommaso, or Evans, let me know down below. This journey's just starting. So, let's back up a bit, guys. I mean, if we're really gonna unpack this Nancy Guthrie mystery, we gotta start with the night everything changed. Nancy's last seen at home after Tommaso drives her back from family dinner around 9:30 p.m. on January 31st, 2026. Everything seems normal, She's 84. Just had a nice meal with the family, heads inside her place in that quiet Catalina Foothills neighborhood in Tucson. No alarms, no weird vibes reported. But by the next morning, February fun, she's not at church like usual, and boom, missing person alert. I started piecing this timeline together from the official stuff, like the FBI's missing person poster and those early press releases from the Pima County Sheriff's Department. It lays it out pretty clear. Tommaso, her son-in-law, is the one who drops her off. He's married to Annie, Nancy's oldest daughter, and he's a teacher, AP biology at some school nearby. From what they've said, it was just a regular drop-off after dinner. No arguments, no nothing out of the ordinary. But here's the thing, Tommaso being the last one with her, could that mean he knows more about her routine, like where the cameras are? Not accusing the guy, but in these cases, the last person to see someone, it always raises an eyebrow. The sheriff cleared the family early on, back in mid-February 2026, said they're all cooperating. But still, questions linger, right? I gotta be honest, when I pulled up the FBI video, it hit me different seeing that figure with the backpack. It's this grainy footage they released on February 10th, 2026, shows a guy approaching the front door camera around 1:45 a.m., messing with it until about 2:30 a.m. He's got a gun visible, that black Ozark Trail backpack slung over his shoulder, gloves on, mask up. The camera's a Nest doorbell or something similar, and he tampers with it, like he's trying to disable it or point it away. The timing is so tight. Nancy's probably asleep inside, dealing with her health stuff. She's got a pacemaker, needs daily meds for her heart, and walks with some difficulty. That makes it even sadder, An elderly lady like that, vulnerable, and someone sneaks up in the dead of night. The video cuts off after he fiddles with it. But there's a second clip they mentioned, though not fully public yet. What gets me is, no signs of a break-in. The house is locked up tight when they check later. Doors secure, windows intact. So, how does she vanish without a trace? The house is in this fancy Catalina Foothills area, worth maybe a couple million, and no forced entry. That tells us it might be someone familiar. I mean, look, I dug into property values there, just public record stuff, and yeah, homes in that spot near Hacienda del Sol Road go for big bucks, 1 to 2 million easy, sometimes more. It's a gated kind of vibe, upscale, low crime. But here's where it gets really puzzling. If it's a random grab, why no busted door? Why tamper with the camera so carefully? The sheriff's been saying since March 2026 that they think it's targeted. They believe they know the motive, but won't spill yet. And they figure Nancy's still alive, no evidence of harm. But That optimism clashes with the zero leads so far, even with over 19,000 tips flooding in by late February. You know, comparing this to other cases I've followed, like that Gabby Petito thing back in the day, where timelines were everything, the details here scream for more scrutiny. In Gabby, the van footage and stops along the way cracked it open. Here, we've got the dinner at 9:30 p.m. drop off, then silence until the tampering at 1:45 a.m. What happens in those hours? Was Nancy asleep? Did she hear anything? The utility box nearby was damaged too, like the one that handles internet for the block. Investigators are looking into if that was cut to knock out the cameras fully. It's all so methodical and sad, guys. Thinking about Nancy, this sweet lady who needs her meds, her pacemaker keeping her going, it's heartbreaking. If it was someone close, or tipped by someone close, that betrayal level. Oof. The problem is, we don't have proof either way. The DNA from those gloves found nearby turned out to be from some random restaurant worker, not related. Per the March updates, they're doing genealogy testing now, which could take months. And the vehicles in that new Ring camera footage from day 26 of the search shows cars lurking on the outskirts of the neighborhood that morning. No plates ID'd yet, but could one be linked to someone we know? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Does this make sense to you? Like, is the no forced entry thing pointing to an inside job, or am I reading too much? The crazy thing is, Annie's right there in the mix as her daughter, but we'll get to her next. This timeline, guys, it's the foundation, and it's got holes big enough to drive a truck through. Stick with me. What do you make of that 1:45 a.m. window? Let me know down below. At the same time, let's talk about Annie. You know, in cases that stretch on like this one, the adult kids, especially the ones who live closest, they end up carrying a different kind of weight. Annie Guthrie is Nancy's eldest daughter, married to Tommaso Cioni, and they've got their own home not far from where Nancy lived in Tucson. She's always come across as the quieter one in the family, especially next to her sister Savannah, who's out there every day on national TV. Annie hasn't done much in front of cameras, hasn't given long interviews, hasn't flooded socials with updates. But there was that one moment when she did step forward, and it stuck with me. It was in a short plea video put out around mid-February 2026, I want to say February 15 or so, based on when the clip started circulating on local news sites. She's standing outside, maybe in her driveway or somewhere simple, hair pulled back, no makeup, just looking straight at the lens. Her voice is calm, but you can hear the strain underneath. She talks about her mom in the present tense, how Nancy still calls to check in, how she loves hearing about the grandkids' school days, how the house feels empty without her. It's not a long speech, maybe 30 seconds, but the way she says, "We just want you home, Mum," it lands heavy. You can see it in her eyes, this mix of hope and exhaustion. I gotta be honest, how hard it must be for her. Your mom vanishes from her own home, no goodbye, no note, and suddenly you're fielding questions from detectives, trying to shield your kids from the news trucks outside, all while wondering if you'll ever hear that voice on the phone again. That kind of grief mixed with uncertainty. It's brutal. From the little bits that have come out publicly, things Savannah has mentioned in passing during her on-air appeals, or short quotes in Arizona papers, the mother-daughter bond sounded warm and everyday. Nancy was the type who remembered birthdays with cards and homemade treats, who asked about Annie's day even when she was tired herself. Annie, in turn, was the one who'd drop by with groceries or help sort through old photos. It's the kind of relationship that looks solid on paper, the kind most people would envy in a family. But when something like this happens, even the strongest ties get examined under a microscope. What I found was reports of SWAT at her house early on, which really shocked me. This was just a couple days into the search, February 3 or 4, 2026. Tucson news outlets reported multiple law enforcement vehicles, including SWAT, showing up at Annie and Tommaso's address. Officers went inside, stayed for a while, then left. No dramatic arrests, no one let out in cuffs, but the sheer presence of a tactical team at the daughter's home so soon after the disappearance. That image alone is jarring. Why there? Was it based on a specific tip, a routine family check that escalated, or something else entirely? The sheriff's office never gave a detailed public explanation. They just kept saying the family was cooperating fully. And here's the thing that balances it out. The family was cleared pretty quickly. By mid-February 2026, the Pima County Sheriff made a point of stating that immediate family members, Annie included, were not considered suspects. They were described as helpful, open, sharing whatever information they had. March updates from the Joint Task Force repeated the same line: cooperation continues. No persons of interest in the inner circle. Savannah's been the louder voice with her televised pleas, but Annie's quieter role in that one video carries its own emotional punch. It feels authentic, not performative, not overly polished. Just a daughter reaching out in the only way she can right then. Still, cleared doesn't mean questions disappear. That early SWAT activity, the decision to stay mostly out of the spotlight afterward, the way the family circle keeps coming up in timeline discussions, it all leaves room for doubt. Not wild conspiracy stuff, just the natural wondering that happens when answers are slow to come. If the person who tampered with the camera knew Nancy's habits, knew when she'd be alone, the people closest to her naturally fall into view. What do you guys think? Does that early law enforcement visit to Annie's house strike you as standard procedure in a missing person case? Or does it feel like it adds an extra layer that hasn't been fully explained? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Am I the only one replaying that plea video and wondering what's behind the quiet? This is where it gets wild. Enter Tommaso. Because the man who drove Nancy home that final night is married to Annie. And that connection pulls him straight into the heart of the timeline we've been walking through. Hang tight, we're going there next. This puzzle keeps shifting every time I look at it. Let me know what you're feeling so far. And then, we have Tommaso, the son-in-law. You know, every timeline in a case like this has that one person who becomes the anchor point, the last known contact before everything goes sideways. For Nancy Guthrie, that person is Tommaso Cioni. He's the one who drove her home from the family dinner on January 31, 2026, pulled up to her place around 9:30 p.m., watched her go inside, and then headed back to his own house with Annie. From all accounts, including what the sheriff's office has released, it was uneventful. No raised voices, no lingering arguments. Just a routine goodnight after a normal evening. But being the last one to see her alive, that puts him under the kind of scrutiny that doesn't let up easy. Tommaso's a high school biology teacher, AP Biology at Basis Oro Valley, which is right in the Tucson area. Steady job, no flashy lifestyle from what shows up in public records or local mentions. He was questioned pretty early on, like within the first couple days of the disappearance. Detectives talked to him, went over the drive, the drop-off, what Nancy said last, how she seemed. Nothing dramatic came out of it publicly, no bombshells, no contradictions that got leaked. The family, including Tommaso, has been described as fully cooperative from the jump. But the timing is very, very suspicious when you zoom in on it. He leaves at 9:30, Nancy's presumably settling in for the night, and then between roughly midnight and 2:30 a.m., something happens. She's gone by the time people start checking the next morning because she didn't show up at church. I dug into his background a bit. Not deep private stuff, just what's out there. And there's nothing criminal on record. No arrests, no red flags in employment history, no weird social media trails. But the problem is his band connection with Evans. They've been playing together in early black since 2007, met through Craigslist back when that was how people found bandmates. Tommaso on guitar, Evans on drums, casual rock group, local gigs. Nothing huge. They know each other well enough for years of rehearsals, late-night practices, shared stories. Could they have chatted about Nancy's routines over time? Like, casually mentioned, when she's alone, how the cameras are set up, or even just the layout of the house. Not saying they did, there's zero evidence of that, but long friendships mean shared knowledge. And in a case where the camera tampering looks so deliberate, that kind of familiarity starts to feel relevant. The drop-off itself. Let's walk it again because it matters. Tommaso pulls up, Nancy gets out, goes through the front door. He drives away. No one reports seeing anything odd at that moment. But fast forward a few hours, the Nest camera captures that figure approaching around 1:45 a.m., gun in view, backpack on, gloves and mask. Messing with the device for nearly an hour until about 2:30. It's not a smash and grab, it's careful, almost patient. He repositions it or disables the feed without triggering any immediate alert. And then, no break-in. Door stays locked, windows untouched, no shattered glass, no pry marks reported in any update. That no break-in detail keeps coming back to me like a loop. If someone got inside without forcing anything, either Nancy opened the door herself, maybe thinking it was family, or the person had a way in that didn't involve breaking. The shock of that hits hard, an 84-year-old woman with mobility issues and a pacemaker, alone at night, and the entry looks clean. FBI statements keep emphasizing cooperation from the family, Tommaso included. In those early February pressers, they said everyone was forthcoming, timelines matched up, no inconsistencies flagged. But online rumors, they persist. People point to the band link, the drop-off timing, the fact that he knows the property better than most. Nothing official backs any of it up. The sheriff and FBI have both said the family is not in the suspect pool. But the chatter doesn't die down. It's that gap between cleared and fully explained that keeps the questions alive. Let me know down below, does Tommaso being the last to see her feel like just bad luck in the timeline? Or does the whole no break in camera work make that last contact feel heavier than it should? Drop your thoughts, I'm reading every one. But wait, let's connect the dots to Evans. Because if Tommaso's the anchor, his longtime bandmate is the next thread that pulls everything tighter. This is getting layered fast, stick with me. What are you thinking so far? Here's the thing, Evans is Tommaso's bandmate from way back in 2007. You know how some friendships just stick around for decades? That's Tommaso and Dominic Evans. They connected through Craigslist back when that was the go-to spot for finding people to jam with, and started this local rock band called Early Black. Tommaso handles guitar, Evans is on drums. They've kept it going all these years, rehearsals, small gigs around Tucson, the occasional bar show. Nothing that ever blew up big, just a steady side thing for two guys who teach school by day. Evans is an elementary school teacher, been at it a while, has a kid of his own. From the outside, it's the kind of low-key friendship that doesn't raise alarms, until you layer it over a disappearance like this. He's got that one old mark on his record, a minor theft charge from 1999. Stole a computer and a watch while he was drunk. Got caught. Dealt with it. No violence, no pattern of bigger crimes after that. Just a dumb college-age mistake that shows up when people start digging. But in a case where someone shows up at a front door in the middle of the night with a gun and a backpack, that old record gets pulled out and looked at again. Not saying it means anything definitive, it's ancient history, but it adds this tiny shadow that won't go away. What if Evans is the guy in the camera footage? The height lines up, 5'9" to 5'10". Average build matches what the FBI described from the enhanced clips. And that backpack, the Black Ozark Trail 25-liter one, slung over the shoulder in the video. It's the exact model that's easy to grab at any Walmart. Not rare, not unique, but it's there, visible, part of the profile they released. The figure moves deliberately, approaches, tampers for almost an hour, gun visible but not waved around. It's not frantic, it's calculated. If it's someone who knows the area, knows the family routines through a long friendship, the mind starts connecting those dots, even if there's no hard proof tying him to the scene. What struck me here was his tattoo rumors linking to the video glitch. Online sleuths, and there are a lot of them on this one, zoomed in frame by frame on that moment where the glove shifts, just a bit on the right wrist. Some claim they see ink peeking out, maybe a partial design that matches photos of Evans from band shows or old social posts. Nothing the FBI has confirmed, no official statement saying, tattoo on wrist, but the speculation took off fast. I went back and watched those clips myself, slowed them down. It's blurry, grainy, easy to see what you want to see. But once you hear the rumor, you can't unsee it. That kind of detail, real or not, keeps the questions spinning. The reality check comes quick, though. Evans was questioned for hours early in the investigation, I think around February 10 or 11, 2026, right after the video dropped. They let him go, no charges, no hold. His son even had to stay home from school for a bit because of the media and looky-loos showing up near their place. And the DNA. March 2026 updates cleared that up. The gloves found near the scene had DNA from a restaurant worker, some guy who handled them during a shift. Totally unrelated. No match to Evans, no match to anyone in any database yet. They're still running genealogy on it, hoping for a family link somewhere down the line. But so far, dead end on that front. Still, the band history, the physical match, the proximity through Tommaso, it all sits there like a puzzle piece that doesn't quite fit, but won't fall out either. I gotta be honest with you, this part leaves me with more hodi-ungi than almost anything else so far. A guy who's known the family circle for nearly 2 decades, shows up in rumors that align suspiciously with the footage, gets questioned and released, but the questions don't release with him. It's that lingering doubt that keeps pulling me back. Am I the only one who finds this weird? Like, is the band connection just coincidence, or does it feel like one more thread that could unravel something bigger? Drop your thoughts in the comments, seriously. What are you making of Evans right now? That's when we look at the house value motive. Because if any of this ties back to money or pressure, or something buried in the family finances, suddenly these personal connections start looking different. Hang on, we're shifting gears next. Let me know what this Evans piece is doing to your theory so far. Now, the house in Catalina Futhiles. You know, money doesn't always scream in these cases. Sometimes it just sits there quietly in the background, waiting for someone to notice. Nancy's place isn't some average suburban home. It's in one of Tucson's most desirable pockets, that Catalina Futhiles stretch where the views are killer, the lots are big, and the prices reflect it. We're talking prime real estate. Homes in that immediate area routinely list and sell in the 1 to 2 million range, sometimes pushing higher depending on updates, pool, or just how close you are to the mountain trails. It's the kind of property that appreciates steadily, year after year, especially in a market like Arizona's where people keep moving in for the weather and the lifestyle. Nancy lived there alone, which adds another layer. At 84, with the pacemaker and the daily meds and the mobility challenges, she wasn't exactly flipping houses or hosting big parties. It was her quiet spot, probably full of memories, photos on the walls, the same furniture she's had forever. But that solitude, it makes the asset feel even more exposed in a way. No one else rattling around in their day-to-day. No spouse to share decisions. Just her, and whatever plans the family might have quietly discussed over the years about what happens next. This is the part I couldn't get past, digging property records. I pulled up public sites, Zillow comps, county assessor pages, recent sales in the neighborhood, just trying to get a feel for what we're really looking at here. The numbers don't lie. Similar square footage, same age bracket of homes, they've been moving fast lately, some with multiple offers. It's not like it's sitting empty or falling apart. It's a solid, valuable piece of real estate that could represent a serious chunk of change if it ever changed hands. And in elder abduction or disappearance cases, where finances creep in, that value starts feeling like a magnet. Could Tommaso and Annie be eyeing it for inheritance, with Evans helping in some way? Not saying there's proof. There's zero public evidence of any plotting, No leaked arguments over wills, no court filings about estates. But long-term friendships like the one with Evans mean shared conversations over beers after band practice, late-night talks that wander from music to life stuff to family. If money pressure existed, debt, school tuition for kids, whatever, could someone float the idea of, what if mom's not around as long? Or, what if we help things along? It's the ugliest what if, I get it. But these cases have seen it before. Think about that one in Florida a few years back, where adult kids got impatient with an aging parent's assets, or the Midwest case where a son-in-law got tangled in a scheme over a paid-off house. Patterns repeat, guys. Not every time, but enough that you can't ignore the possibility. The crazy thing is, there's no evidence of disputes. No family members coming forward saying, there were fights about money. The sheriff and FBI have both been crystal clear since February. The immediate family, Annie and Tommaso included, are cooperative, not suspects, no red flags on that front. March updates from the task force doubled down, everyone's helping, timelines check out. No financial motive flagged publicly. They even said outright they're not treating it as a standard inheritance grab. But cleared doesn't mean the angle vanishes. It just means no smoking gun has shown up yet, and in a case with no forced entry, no witnesses, a carefully tampered camera, the absence of obvious struggle keeps pulling my mind back to people who knew the routine, knew the value sitting inside those walls. So, really makes you wonder, doesn't it? If the house is worth that much and Nancy's health made her vulnerable, could that have quietly become part of someone's thinking? Or is it just me projecting from too many other true crime stories where money quietly turned everything toxic? What do you guys think? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Does the real estate piece feel like background noise to you, or does it sit heavier now that we've walked the timeline? The crazy thing is, ransom notes complicate it even more. Because if this was about money all along, why the flood of fake demands and Bitcoin asks? Or are they just noise to throw everyone off the real trail? Hang on, we're heading into that mess next. Let me know what this financial angle is stirring up for you. This keeps getting twistier. So, those ransom demands pouring in. Right around the time the disappearance hit national news, like day 5 or 6, early February 2026, the family started getting hit with these messages. Emails, letters, even some creepy texts and social DMs claiming the sender had Nancy and wanted money to bring her back safe. Most of them demanded Bitcoin, which is classic for these kinds of opportunists because it's hard to trace if you're sloppy. The family didn't pay any. Obviously, they turned everything straight over to the FBI. But the volume was insane. We're talking dozens, maybe more, flooding in from all over. The one that actually led to an arrest was this guy from California. He sent a letter with specific demands, Bitcoin wallet address, timeline, the whole script, acting like he was the real deal. FBI tracked him down pretty quick, arrested him within a week or so of the first wave. Turns out it was a total fraud. He had zero connection to Nancy, just saw the story blowing up and tried to cash in. No knowledge of her location. No proof he even knew what she looked like beyond the photos online. That arrest got a little press locally, but it was basically the tip of the iceberg. Most of the others, straight-up copy-paste scams or trolls looking for attention. Some were so poorly written, you could tell they were kids messing around or people high on the drama. I gotta be honest, reviewing FBI statements blew my mind. In one of the early pressers, I think February 12 or 13, they flat out said the vast majority were not credible, basically advising the public not to engage if they got contacted. But they also asked anyone who received something suspicious to forward it immediately. The family even put out a short statement through Savannah's people. We're grateful for tips, but please don't send money or respond to these demands. Reading between the lines, you could feel how exhausting it must have been, on top of worrying about Nancy. Now you've got this flood of garbage making everything worse. The shock of the fake ones hit hard for me, because How predatory is that? Someone's mom is missing, vulnerable, and strangers see dollar signs instead of a person. What if some are from insiders like Evans to cover tracks? Not saying there's evidence, zero leaks point to that, but, in theory, throwing out fake ransom notes could muddy the waters big time. Make it look like a random kidnapping for cash thing when maybe it's more personal, more connected. If someone close knew the family would get swamped with these, they could hide in the noise. One or two real-sounding demands mixed in with the fakes. It keeps investigators chasing shadows while the clock ticks. Again, no proof Evans or anyone sent anything, but the timing. Notes starting right as the video footage dropped and the reward climbed. It feels convenient for anyone wanting to deflect. The rewards kept stacking up, which tells its own story. FBI started at $5,000, bumped it to $100,000 pretty fast. Then the family, I believe through Savannah and maybe some private donors, pushed it all the way to $1 million for information leading to Nancy's safe return. That's a huge number, guys. It pulled in over 19,000 tips by late February, and the task force was still sorting through them in March 2026. But no breakthrough. No solid lead from any of the notes, no payout, no one coming forward with the real thing. It's like the reward lit a fire under every scammer in the country, but the actual kidnapper, if there is one who's rational, stayed silent. The crazy part is how these fake leads can derail momentum. Investigators have to chase every credible-sounding one, even if it's 99% likely bogus. That takes time, resources, manpower away from digging into closer circles. And meanwhile, Nancy's still out there somewhere, or at least that's what the sheriff keeps saying, that they believe she's alive. But the ransom circus, it adds this layer of chaos that makes everything feel dirtier. Drop your thoughts. Do the fake ransom notes feel like pure opportunism to you, or does the sheer volume make you wonder if someone's using them as cover? Like, is this just the internet being awful, or could it be part of a bigger play? Let me know down below. I'm curious what this mess is doing to your read on the case. At the same time, the camera footage deep dive. Because if the ransom stuff is all smoke, the one piece of hard evidence we have is that video from the front door. Let's go frame by frame on that next. It's where a lot of this starts feeling less random. Hang on. This is about to get even more intense. What are you thinking about these notes right now? This is where it gets wild. The FBI video. Up until this point, everything's been words on a page, timelines, statements, rumors. Then you actually watch the footage they released, and it shifts from abstract to visceral. The FBI dropped these clips on February 10, 2026, 2 versions, stills pulled from the feed and short video segments. It's the front door Nest camera, timestamped right in that dark window between 1:45 a.m. and about 2:30 a.m. on February 1. The figure steps into frame, male, average build, moving with purpose but not rushing. He's got a short-barreled handgun visible in his right hand, held low but ready. Over his shoulder, that black Ozark Trail backpack, the 25-liter hiker pack you see everywhere. Gloves, dark clothing, face covered, mask pulled up high. He reaches the camera, starts working it. Not smashing it, not yanking wires. More like adjusting the angle, maybe covering the lens partially, or messing with the base to kill the feed without obvious damage. It takes him nearly 45 minutes of fiddling before the picture cuts or goes static. Patient. Methodical. Tense as hell to watch. What I found was, watching it frame by frame, I pulled it up on a bigger screen, slowed the playback to quarter speed, paused every few seconds. The way he holds the gun, not waving it, just gripping it like it's insurance. The backpack sits heavy, straps tight, no swinging. His posture, shoulders squared, no slouch, like someone who's done physical work or training. Height estimate from the FBI 5'9" to 5'10", feels spot on when you line him up against the doorframe. Average build, not skinny, not bulky. And then there's that one glitch moment, maybe 10 seconds in, right wrist, where the glove rides up just a fraction as he reaches higher. Some light catches something, a shadow. Ink. Online groups blew it up into tattoo theories, claiming it matches a design Evans has been photographed with at banned shows. Nothing official confirms it. FBI never mentioned a tattoo in their descriptions. But once you see the stills side by side, it's hard not to stare. The resemblance in silhouette, the approximate height, the general proportions, it fits in a way that's uncomfortable. Evans' build fits, tattoo on wrist. Not confirmed. That's the tightrope here. No face, no voice, no fingerprints released from the scene. Just this grainy nighttime footage and a physical profile that could describe a lot of guys in their late 40s. But when you add the long friendship with Tommaso, the local knowledge of the area, the fact that he's been in the family orbit for almost 2 decades, the overlay starts feeling less coincidental. Not proof, not even close, but enough to make your stomach twist. The tension in that clip is palpable. Nancy's inside, probably asleep or resting, dealing with her heart condition, and this guy's methodically disabling the one thing that might catch him. It's cold. Calculated. Makes you tense just thinking about what happens after the feed dies. No ID yet per latest sheriff update. As of mid-March 2026, the task force was still saying the person in the video remains unidentified. They've enhanced it, run it through facial rec software. Even though the mask kills most of that, compared it to known persons of interest, and nothing definitive. They keep asking for tips on the backpack, the gun style, anything that might jog a memory. But no arrest, no name attached. That silence after all the public release. It amps the frustration. You release the clearest evidence you have, dangle $1 million reward, get 19,000 tips. And the guy in the video is still a ghost. The whole thing leaves this knot in your chest. Watching someone tamper like that, knowing an elderly woman is on the other side of the door. It's not just a crime, it's intimate, invasive. The gun isn't brandished for show, it's there like a quiet threat. And the patience, that's what gets under my skin. Most opportunistic break-ins are fast, sloppy. This feels different. Like someone who planned the window, knew the camera placement, understood how long they could linger without drawing immediate attention. Does this make sense to you? Like, does the footage feel random to you? Or does the deliberate nature of the tampering, combined with that physical match to someone already in the conversation, make it hit different? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'm genuinely curious if anyone else gets the same tense vibe rewatching those frames. But wait, utility box tie-in. Because if the camera work was step 1, investigators think there might have been a step 0, something messing with the internet feed to the whole block. That damaged utility box around the corner. It's starting to look like it could be connected. Let's go there next. This is getting even more layered. What does that footage do to your headspace right now? Let me know. And then, this utility box around the corner. You know, sometimes the smallest detail turns out to be the one that changes how you see the whole picture. Investigators flagged this thing early. A utility box, the kind that handles fiber lines or cable internet for the block, sitting just off the main road near Nancy's street. It wasn't right in front of her house. It was maybe 100 yards away, tucked near a utility pole on a side path. But when crews checked it after the disappearance, they found damage, cables sliced or pulled, enough to knock out service to several homes, including hers. The timing lines up suspiciously. Internet drops in the neighborhood sometime after midnight on February 1st, 2026. Right before that front door camera starts getting messed with at 1:45 a.m. Here's how the tech side works, real quick. Most modern doorbell cameras like Nest rely on Wi-Fi or wired internet to record and upload clips live. If the connection gets cut at the source, say someone messes with the neighborhood node, the camera might still have local storage for a bit, but real-time alerts stop, live feeds die, and any cloud backup gets interrupted until it's back online. No ping to the app, no motion notifications popping on phones. It's not foolproof sabotage. Someone could still access stored footage later, but it buys time. It creates a blind spot. And in a quiet, Upscale area like Catalina Futhiles, outages aren't common. Power stays on, but targeted internet disruption. That's deliberate. This really hit me different when I saw the reports. Local news picked it up around mid-February. Arizona outlets mentioned the sheriff's office confirming the box was tampered with, investigators treating it as possible evidence. They didn't scream, "Smoking gun." But they didn't brush it off either. The damage looked clean, not storm damage, not random vandalism. More like someone knew what they were doing, snipped the right lines, avoided tripping any alarms on the utility company's end right away. That level of prep. It makes you pause. This wasn't a smash and grab. This was someone thinking steps ahead. Cut the feed first, then approach the door knowing the camera's offline or delayed. Tommaso knows the area. Could he tip Evans? They've both lived and worked in Tosin for years. Tommaso teaches at a local high school, drives those roads daily. Probably knows every shortcut and pole in the neighborhood from dropping by Nancy's place regularly. If Evans needed directions or intel, "Hey, the utility box is over here, easy access at night." It's not a stretch to imagine a casual conversation turning into something useful. Not saying Tommaso did, not even hinting at proof. Zero leaks or statements point that way. But the proximity, the long friendship, it opens the door to that kind of quiet coordination. One person scouts the tech weak point, the other handles the close-up work. Or maybe it's nothing, but the thought lingers. Under review March 2026, no links confirmed. The task force added it to their list, forensics on the cut cables, checking for tool marks, pulling any nearby surveillance that might have caught someone near the pole earlier that night. But as of the latest sheriff briefing I could find, no suspect tied to it yet. No fingerprints, no DNA from the box itself, no clear video of anyone approaching it. It's still floating as a possible piece, important enough to mention, not solid enough to name names. That limbo drives me nuts. It's a clue that screams planning, but it hasn't pointed anywhere concrete. The whole thing amps the tension even more. If the internet was cut on purpose, then the camera tampering wasn't impulsive, it was the second move in a sequence. Someone knew Nancy's setup relied on that connection. Someone understood the delay it would create, and that someone had to have some level of local knowledge or inside info. Really makes the coordination angle feel heavier. Not random. Not opportunistic, planned. What do you guys think? Does the damaged utility box feel like a key step in a bigger setup to you, or just bad luck coinciding with the timing? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'm dying to hear if this tech detail shifts anything for you. The problem is, DNA dead ends. Because even with all this physical evidence, the box, the footage, the backpack, the forensic side keeps hitting walls. Let's talk about those gloves and why the science hasn't cracked it open yet. Hang on, this is where the frustration really builds. What does the utility box clue do to your overall picture right now? Let me know down below. The gloves found near the scene. Forensics is supposed to be the great equalizer in these cases, the one thing that doesn't lie, doesn't get emotional, just points where it points. So when investigators announced they'd recovered a pair of gloves dropped or discarded close to Nancy's property, not inside, but nearby enough to matter, everyone leaned in. This was early February 2026, right around when the search was ramping up. Gloves mean touch DNA, skin cells, maybe sweat if the person wasn't careful. It's the kind of evidence that can crack a case wide open. The results came back, and yeah, it was a gut punch. The DNA profile pulled from the gloves matched a restaurant worker, some guy who handled kitchen supplies or packaging at a local spot. Not the suspect. Not anyone connected to the disappearance. Just an innocent transfer. Probably from when the gloves were manufactured, shipped, or stocked. The FBI and the task force confirmed it in a March 2006 update, no link to the person in the video, no hit in any criminal database. They ruled it out as unrelated contamination. That dead end hit hard. You get this tangible piece, gloves literally at the scene, and it leads nowhere. It's like the evidence teased you, then slammed the door. Genealogy ongoing. Even with the mismatch, they're not tossing it. They're running the profile through investigative genetic genealogy, the same tech that helped solve cold cases like the Golden State Killer. They build family trees from public DNA databases, look for distant relatives, narrow it down. It's slow, painstaking work, weeks or months, and as of mid-March 2026, no public breakthrough from it yet. The sheriff mentioned it in a briefing, still active, still hopeful it could point to someone peripheral or unknown. But no name, no arrest, no, we're close. Just ongoing. What if Evans wore different ones, or it's a plant? That's the nagging thought that creeps in. Maybe the gloves left behind weren't the only pair used. Disposables are cheap, easy to double up. Or what if someone dropped these on purpose, knowing they'd confuse things? A deliberate red herring to waste lab time and divert from the real handler. Not saying that's what happened. There's zero evidence pointing to anyone planting anything. But in a case where so much else feels calculated, you can't help wondering if the forensics were game too. Really frustrating when the science, which is supposed to cut through the noise, just adds more noise. I dug into lab processes, Quantico stuff. The FBI lab at Quantico handles a ton of this: touch DNA extraction, amplification, comparison against CODIS and other databases. It's high tech, but it's not magic. Contamination happens all the time in supply chains. Gloves get touched by dozens of people before they ever reach a crime scene. Genealogy adds another layer. They use companies like GEDmatch or Family Tree DNAs, with consent ruleless, build trees, interview cousins or second cousins. It's revolutionized cold cases, but for fresh ones like this, it takes time, and patience is wearing thin. The task force is still grinding on it, but no fireworks yet. No matches, case still open. That's the bottom line in March 2026. No CODIS hit, no genealogy lead announced, no closure from the gloves. The evidence sits there, physical, testable, recovered, and it hasn't moved the needle. That shock of the dead end, it lingers. You expect forensics to deliver that aha moment, especially with gloves right there. Instead, it's another blind alley. Makes the whole investigation feel heavier, like every lead evaporates just when you're getting traction. Am I the only one? Does this forensic dead end make the case feel colder to you? Or does the ongoing genealogy work give you any hope that something's still brewing behind the scenes? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Seriously, what does this gloves twist do to your read on everything? Here's the thing, band history. Because if the DNA isn't giving answers, maybe we need to circle back to those long-standing connections that predate all this. The friendship that's been there for years might hold clues the lab work hasn't touched yet. Hang on, we're going there next. This keeps feeling like layers on layers. What are you feeling about the forensics right now? Let me know down below. So, Early Black, the rock band. Sometimes the most ordinary hobbies end up looking different under the light of a serious case. Early Black is this small, local rock outfit that's been plugging away since 2007. Nothing that ever hit the charts or filled arenas, just a group of guys who love playing together. Tommaso on guitar, laying down those riffs, Dominic Evans behind the drums, keeping the beat steady. They met through Craigslist back when that was how people found bandmates, posted an ad, got a response, started jamming. Over the years it's turned into a real thing. Regular rehearsals in someone's garage or a rented space, occasional gigs at local bars or small venues around Tucson, maybe a wedding or a private party here and there. Low stakes, high fun. At least that's how it always looked from the outside. What gets me is their one meeting with Nancy. From what came out in interviews and local reports, Evans only crossed paths with her once, some casual family event or maybe a quick hello when he was over at Tommaso's place. Not a deep connection, not regular visits, just that single encounter. But even one meeting means he saw her face, heard her voice, got a sense of the family dynamic up close. In a long-running friendship like this, Those little moments add up. Rehearsals turn into hangouts, hangouts turn into conversations that wander from set lists to life stuff. Could those late-night talks after practice have drifted into family territory? Not necessarily plotting, but casual mentions of Nancy living alone, her routines, how the house feels empty sometimes. Over years, those often comments build a picture. And if someone ever needed that picture, well, it's already there, shared without anyone thinking twice. Could gigs hide planning talks about the house? That's the uneasy what if that creeps in. A band practice is the perfect cover. Loud music, doors closed, no one listening in. You talk shop, then the conversation shifts. Hey man, how's your mother-in-law doing? She's hanging in there, still in that big place by herself. No one bats an eye because it's just friends talking. But if motive ever entered the picture, financial strain, impatience, whatever, those same casual chats become something else. A way to gather intel without raising suspicion. Again, zero evidence this happened. No leaked texts, no witness saying, "I overheard them plotting." It's pure speculation based on how long these guys have known each other and how private those band spaces can be. But the duration, nearly 2 decades of friendship, makes it hard to dismiss completely. People share more than they realize when they trust each other. No criminal ties found. That's the hard stop every time this angle comes up. Investigators looked background checks, interviews with other band members or venue owners, even pulling any old gig flyers or social posts. Nothing criminal. No arrests for the band as a group, no shady side hustles tied to early black, no red flags in their public footprint. The sheriff's office and FBI have both said the same. No links to organized crime, no history of fraud or theft beyond Evans' old 1999 misdemeanor, which was isolated and unrelated. The band is just a band. A normal hobby for 2 teachers who like playing rock, roll. But in true crime, normal hobbies sometimes become the backdrop for something abnormal. Not because they're suspicious on their own, but because they're perfect camouflage. The whole thing leaves this lingering unease. A friendship that spans almost 20 years, shared creative time, one brief meeting with the victim, it's innocent until it's not. And when the rest of the evidence, the tampering, the planning, feels so deliberate, you start wondering if the ordinary parts were the perfect shield. Really makes you question how much we actually know about the people closest to the circle. Let me know. Does the band connection feel like harmless background to you, or does the length of the friendship plus that one meeting with Nancy make it sit a little heavier in your mind? Drop your thoughts in the comments, I'm reading them all. That's when family clearance comes in, because no matter how intriguing the personal ties get, the authorities have been consistent. The family circle isn't the focus, but clearance doesn't always quiet the questions. Hang on, we're heading into that next. This keeps pulling in different directions. What are you thinking about early black right now? Let me know down below. The crazy thing is, sheriff clears the family February 2026. You know, when law enforcement comes out and says something definitive like that, it should feel like a weight lifting. Mid-February 2026, I want to say around the 15th or so, the Pima County Sheriff held a briefing and put it plainly, the immediate family members, Annie, Tommaso, Savannah, the whole inner circle, are cooperative, fully cooperative, and not considered persons of interest. No red flags, no inconsistencies in their statements, no reason to treat them as suspects. They emphasized it multiple times. Everyone has been open, forthcoming, sharing whatever they know about Nancy's routines, her health, the last days. It's the kind of statement designed to shut down speculation, protect the family from the worst of the online storm, and keep the focus on the search. Annie and Tommaso in particular got name-checked in follow-ups. They sat for interviews, walked investigators through the dinner on January 31, the drive home, the goodnight at the door. No pushback, no lawyering up, no dodging. The sheriff's people described them as helpful from day one, turning over phone records, access to properties when asked, even helping coordinate with neighbors for canvassing. Savannah's been the public face, doing those emotional on-air pleas, but behind the scenes the whole family was painted as united in the effort to bring Nancy home. It sounded reassuring on paper. Like, okay, the closest people aren't the problem, let's look outward. Still, early swat at Annie's why. That piece just won't fade. This was February 3 or 4, literally days into the disappearance. Multiple vehicles, tactical team on scene, officers going in and out of Annie and Tommaso's house. Local reporters caught it on camera, lights flashing, perimeters set up briefly. It wasn't a quiet knock and talk, it was visible, heavy presence. The sheriff's office never gave a detailed public breakdown. No, we found X, or, it was routine. They just moved on, said the family remained cooperative, and left it at that. But in a missing person case, with no obvious stranger abduction signs, rolling up like that so early on the daughter's home, it feels off. Was it a tip they couldn't ignore? A precaution? Something in the initial timeline that needed double-checking? The lack of explanation keeps it alive in people's heads. I gotta be honest, this didn't sit right. On one hand, the clearance feels genuine, authorities don't usually walk back. Cooperative, not suspects, unless something huge changes. On the other, that SWAT activity early on creates this lingering shadow. It's not about accusing anyone. It's about the optics and the questions it naturally raises. When investigators show that level of force at a family member's door right away, then later say, nothing to see here, it leaves a gap where doubt lives, and doubt in a case like this, where Nancy's still missing, no body, no ransom payoff that stuck, doubt grows fast. No suspects named March 2026. That's the kicker. Even with the task force fully staffed, 19,000 tips sifted, the utility box forensics, the camera enhancements, no one publicly identified as a person of interest outside the vague. We're following leads. The sheriff keeps saying they believe it's targeted. They think they understand the motive Valloser, without saying what, and they still hold hope she's alive. But no name, no sketch beyond the video figure, no arrest. That silence after the family clearance. It amplifies everything. If the inner circle is truly cleared, why hasn't the net widened to a named suspect yet? Or is the clearance protecting something while they build quietly? The whole thing breeds this quiet Hodiungai. Clearance should close doors, instead, it opens more. The SWAT visit becomes this unresolved chord that plays in the background of every update. You want to believe the family is just grieving and helping, and there's every reason to take the sheriff at his word, but the early intensity at Annie's place doesn't vanish. It sits there, making you wonder what was worth that kind of response so soon. What do you think? Does the sheriff's clear statement feel like it settles the family angle for you? Or does the early SWAT activity still leave too much hanging in the air? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'm really curious if this part shifts your perspective or just adds to the unease. At the same time, targeted motive. Because the sheriff keeps circling back to that word, targeted. Not random, not opportunistic, deliberate. And if it's deliberate, and the family isn't the focus, then who or what is? Hang on. We're going into what the sheriff has actually said about motive next. This keeps twisting in ways I didn't expect. What are you feeling about the clearance right now? Let me know down below. This is important. Sheriff says targeted, knows why. You know, when the person running the investigation steps up to a microphone and uses the word targeted more than once, it changes the temperature of the whole case. In a March 2026 briefing, I think it was around the 10th or 12th, one of those mid-month updates, the Pima County Sheriff looked straight into the cameras and said, "It clearly, this is not a random act. They believe Nancy was specifically chosen, and they think they understand the motive behind it." He didn't elaborate, didn't drop hints, just repeated that investigators are confident it's deliberate, not some stranger grabbing whoever was convenient. That single word, targeted, shifts everything from, could be anyone, to, someone had a reason to pick her. The March update doubled down on it. No new arrests, no suspect sketch released, but the sheriff leaned in on the motive angle. We believe we know why this happened. He phrased it carefully. Believe. Not know for certain. But the confidence was there. They tied it to the planning elements, the camera tampering taking nearly an hour, the possible pre-cut internet feed, the lack of forced entry. All of it points to forethought, to someone who knew exactly when Nancy would be alone, how her security worked, and how long they could linger without immediate alarm. It's not the profile of a random opportunist who panics and bolts. It's colder, more intentional. What struck me was the warning about striking again. In the same briefing, the sheriff added this chilling line. We want the community to keep their wits about them. This person could strike again. He said it matter-of-factly, like it was part of the risk assessment. Not fear-mongering, but a real caution. If the motive is targeted and specific to Nancy, her age, her health vulnerabilities, her living situation, then why the warning? Does it mean they think the same person or group might go after another elderly person in a similar setup? Or is it broader, like someone who got away with it once and might feel emboldened? That line landed heavy. It implies investigators see a pattern or a risk profile that extends beyond this one house. But they won't say more. House value, family insider knowledge. Those are the questions that bubble up immediately when targeted meets motive believed. If it's about assets, financial pressure, impatience with an inheritance timeline, then someone with access to details about Nancy's situation would be perfectly positioned. Or if it's knowledge of her daily schedule, her medical needs, the quiet hours when the neighborhood empties out, that kind of intel doesn't come from a stranger driving by. It comes from proximity. Again, no public evidence points to that direction. The sheriff hasn't hinted at finances or family at all, but the word, targeted, naturally pulls your mind toward people or circles who knew her best. Why her, specifically? What made her the one? No details released. That's the wall we keep hitting. The sheriff has been consistent. Releasing more could jeopardize the investigation, tip off the person responsible, or contaminate potential witness memories. So they hold the cards close. They say they have a working theory on motive, but the public gets zero specifics. No, we're looking at financial angles. No, it's personal. No, it's something else entirely. Just belief and caution. That opacity frustrates, but it also makes sense. Loose lips sink cases. Still, when you pair it with the repeated, targeted label and the could strike again warning, the silence feels louder. The analysis here is simple but unsettling. If it's truly targeted, then the pool narrows to people who had reason and opportunity. Not random crime of passion stuff, but something calculated. The sheriff's tone in that March interview, calm, measured, but firm, carried weight. He wasn't speculating, he was stating what the evidence so far supports. And yet, no breakthrough announced. No one in custody. It leaves this tension hanging. They think they know why, they think they know the risk, but the hoe stays in the shadows. Drop your thoughts. Does the sheriff's targeted declaration and the strike again warning make this feel more sinister to you, or do you see it as standard language to keep the public alert? Like, is the motive theory giving you hope they're close, or just more questions about why nothing's public yet? Let me know down below. This part really shifted how I'm looking at the bigger picture. But wait, new video surfaces. Because right around that same March timeframe, another piece of footage from the neighborhood started getting attention. Ring camera captures from the outskirts that morning. Let's dive into what that adds next. This is getting deeper. What does the sheriff's targeted talk do to your theory right now? Tell me. And then, day 26 video from Ring. You know, sometimes a new piece drops weeks into a case, and suddenly the timeline feels alive again. This one surfaced around late February 2026, day 26 of the active search, when a neighbor a few streets over from Nancy's place shared their Ring doorbell footage with investigators. The sheriff's office confirmed it in a brief update. Multiple vehicles captured on the outskirts of the neighborhood in the early morning hours of February 1, right around when Nancy was believed to have been taken. Not right at her door, not blocking her driveway, but close enough on the perimeter roads leading in and out of Catalina Foothills that they caught attention. The clips are short, grainy, typical Ring quality, timestamped between roughly 4:30 a.m. and 6 a.m. You see a couple of sedans and an SUV rolling slowly, headlights on low, no obvious rush but no loitering either. One vehicle pauses briefly at an intersection, lights reflecting off a sign, then continues. Another circles back once, like it's checking the route. Nothing dramatic, no doors opening, no people getting out, no clear plates visible in the low light. But the timing is brutal. This is hours after the camera tampering ended at 2:30 a.m. Right in the window, when Nancy would have been missing long enough for someone to move her without immediate alarm. The vehicles aren't speeding away. They're almost casual, like someone familiar with the area making sure the coast is clear before leaving. This is the part, that changed my view. I pulled up the stills when they leaked to local news sites. Nothing super high-res, but enough to see the makes and models in silhouette. A darker sedan, maybe a Honda or Toyota, average size. An SUV that looks mid-size, possibly a Ford or Chevy. Nothing flashy, nothing that screams getaway car from a movie. But that's what makes it unsettling, ordinary vehicles doing ordinary things at the exact wrong time. If these are connected, it suggests staging, someone parking off-site, approaching on foot, then returning to a vehicle that blends in. The shock hit me when I realized how close the neighborhood is to main roads. You could slip in and out without crossing every camera. But these Ring shots capture the edges, the escape routes, and they were there. Evan's car, or Tomaso's? That's the immediate gut punch question. Both guys live and work in the Tucson area, easy access to those perimeter streets. Evans drives something practical for a teacher with a kid. Tomaso the same for family runs. No public photos or descriptions match exactly, plates aren't visible, angles are bad, and investigators haven't named any vehicle as belonging to them. But the physical proximity, people who know the back ways, who wouldn't look out of place circling at dawn, it fits in a way that's hard to shake. Could one of them have been the wheelman, or scouting the exit while someone else handled the close work? No proof, no confirmation, just the visual of those cars sitting there like ghosts in the footage. Under review, no IDs. The task force said as much in early March 2026. The videos are part of the active analysis, being enhanced, run through plate recognition software where possible, compared to DMV records and known associates. But so far, no positive identification. No, this matches X registration. Just under review. That limbo is maddening. You have actual moving images from the critical morning hours, potential vehicles tied to the abduction window, and crickets on progress. It keeps the hope flickering, maybe this is the break, but also the frustration building because nothing concrete has come from it yet. The shock of seeing those vehicles roll through, it's quiet, but it's real. No sirens, no chase scene, just silent movement in the dark while an 84-year-old woman is already gone from her home. It makes the abduction feel less like a bolt from the blue crime and more like something mapped out, timed, executed with an exit strategy in mind. Really changes the weight of the morning hours. Not just the night of tampering, the aftermath too. Does this make sense? Like, do those perimeter vehicles feel like a loose end that could crack things open, or just more noise in a case full of shadows? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'm curious if this footage shifted anything for you the way it did for me. The problem is elder abuse angles, because if the targeted motive involves vulnerability, age, health, isolation, some reports started surfacing about potential prior concerns or patterns in the area. Let's go there next. This keeps layering on. What does day 26 do to your headspace right now? Let me know down below. This elder abuse angel rumor. Just when you think the case can't get any heavier, something like this bubbles up, and adds a whole new shadow. Around early March 2026, right as the task force was digging deeper into Nancy's daily life, local Arizona outlets started reporting on whispers of prior elder abuse or exploitation concerns tied to her situation. It wasn't a bombshell press conference or official charge. It was more like tips and anonymous posts that got amplified. People started calling the anonymous source or the tipster elder abuse angel. Online, someone claiming to have inside knowledge about Nancy being taken advantage of before the disappearance. The name stuck because the tips painted a picture of subtle mistreatment, financial pressure, neglect of her medical needs, isolation from support she might have wanted. Nothing concrete, no documents leaked. Just enough smoke to make people ask if the abduction was the end of a longer story. The reports that surfaced in March mentioned exploitation claims, things like unauthorized access to accounts, pressure to change living arrangements, or delays in getting her the right care for her pacemaker and mobility issues. One local investigative piece quoted a community advocate saying they'd heard similar patterns in upscale neighborhoods where elderly folks live alone, family members slowly assuming control under the guise of helping. Then things escalate. No names were attached publicly to these claims at first, but the timing made everyone look sideways at the people closest. Annie or Tommaso involved in mistreatment? That's the ugly question it forces. If there was any truth to the exploitation angle, the daughter and son-in-law would naturally fall under scrutiny. They're the ones who saw her most regularly, handled errands, maybe helped with bills or doctor visits. Not saying there's proof. Zero official statements from the sheriff or FBI have confirmed any prior abuse, and the family clearance from February still stands. But the rumor mill doesn't care about official lines. It asks, was Nancy's vulnerability exploited long before that night? Was there resentment building or financial strain that turned darker? It's heartbreaking to even think about. An 84-year-old woman who should have been safe in her own home, possibly dealing with quiet pressures from the very people who should have protected her most. What I found was disturbing videos. A couple of short clips started circulating on local news aggregators and true crime forums. Grainy cell phone footage allegedly from neighborhood events or family gatherings over the past year or two. In one, Nancy looks frail, sitting off to the side while others talk around her. Someone zooms in briefly, and you see her expression, tired, maybe confused. Another purported to show a tense moment outside her house, voices raised but words muffled. Nothing clear enough to prove abuse, nothing time-stamped or verified, but the visuals hit hard. Watching an elderly woman who can't move easily, who relies on her pacemaker, looking isolated in her own space, it stirs this deep sadness. How many times do we see these cases where the abuse was invisible until it wasn't? The thought that Nancy might have been enduring something quietly, day after day, before the night she vanished, it just feels wrong on every level. Unconfirmed, investigation ongoing. That's the official line every time this angle gets brought up. The sheriff addressed it briefly in a late March update. We're looking into all tips, including any related to prior welfare concerns, but nothing has been substantiated as abuse or exploitation at this point. No charges, no protective orders mentioned, no family members named in connection. The task force is still taking calls on it, cross-checking with medical records, financial statements, neighbor statements, standard protocol for vulnerable adult cases. But no breakthrough announced. It stays in this limbo, possible layer, possible distraction, but not dismissed. The sadness here is overwhelming. Nancy wasn't just any victim, she was someone who needed care, who depended on others for basic safety. If even a fraction of these claims holds water, it turns the disappearance from a mystery abduction into something far more tragic, a culmination of neglect or worse. And if it's all smoke, then it's another cruel rumor piling on a grieving family already under siege. Either way, it hurts to think about her alone in that house, possibly carrying burdens no one saw. Am I the only one? Does this elder abuse whisper make the case feel even sadder to you? Like we're missing a longer story of vulnerability? Or does it come across as just more unverified noise? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'm really feeling the weight of this part. Here's the thing, tip line developments. Because with claims like these floating, the flood of calls to the FBI hotline has only grown, some serious, some wild. Let's talk about what those 19,000 tips are actually yielding next. This layer just made everything feel more raw. What does the elder abuse angle do to your emotions right now? Let me know down below. So, tips over 19,000 by February. You know, when a case like Nancy's blows up nationally, Savannah on the Today Show every morning, the FBI video going viral, the $1 million reward headline, the tip line turns into a fire hose. By late February 2026, the FBI announced they'd already received more than 19,000 submissions through the 1-800 call FBI number, the online portal at tips, FB, Gov, and local sheriff channels. That's not exaggeration, they put the exact number out in a press release because they wanted people to understand the scale. Calls from across the country, some from people who thought they saw her at a gas station in Texas, others swearing they spotted the suspect in a Walmart parking lot in Ohio. A few even came from overseas, tourists who remembered a woman matching her description on a cruise or at an airport. By March 2026, the surge hadn't slowed much. The Joint Task Force, 5 dedicated Pima County deputies plus FBI agents working full-time, was still sifting through the backlog. They set up a dedicated review team just for tips. Analysts cross-checking descriptions, pulling surveillance from businesses people mentioned, running partial plate numbers or vehicle models against databases. The sheriff said in one update they were prioritizing anything with verifiable detail, timestamps, exact locations, clear photos submitted by callers. But the sheer volume meant most got triaged. Low-priority ones logged, but not chased immediately. High-priority ones bumped to active follow-up. It was organized chaos. The kind that happens when the public wants to help, but doesn't always have the right information. Any pointing to Evans or family? That's the quiet question hanging over every batch. With 19,000 plus leads, statistically some had to name-drop people close to Nancy, a neighbor who thought they saw Tommaso driving by at odd hours, a coworker who remembered Evans mentioning family drama, or anonymous emails claiming, "It's the son-in-law, trust me." The task force has never confirmed specifics like that publicly, but they did say in March that they'd followed up on several tips related to known associates. Nothing led to a breakthrough. No one pulled in for questioning based solely on a caller tip that panned out. But the possibility is always there. One solid, detailed submission could change everything. I dug into statements. Really overwhelming. I went back through every public FBI and sheriff briefing from February through mid-March, reading the quotes word for word. The numbers kept climbing. 1,000 by mid-February, 15,000 a week later, topping 19,000 shortly after the reward hit $1 million. Each update thanked the public, urged more tips, but also gently reminded people to stick to facts. If you saw something, say something, but hoaxes and misinformation slow us down. The exhaustion in their tone was palpable. Agents aren't just answering phones, they're logging, categorizing, deconflicting duplicate tips, chasing dead ends that eat hours. One sheriff comment stuck with me: every tip matters, but not every tip is actionable. That honesty hit hard, its gratitude mixed with the reality that most of the flood is noise. Most false, like ransom. Just like those Bitcoin demands, a huge chunk of the tips turned out to be well-meaning mistakes or outright fabrications. People seeing similar elderly women at grocery stores, misremembered dates, grainy photos of strangers that look like the guy in the video. Some were trolls jumping on the viral wave for attention. The task force weeded through it all, but it takes manpower. False leads don't just waste time, they pull resources from real avenues, re-interviewing witnesses, re-examining the utility box forensics, enhancing that perimeter ring footage. The contrast is brutal. Thousands of people trying to help, but the sheer volume creates its own bottleneck. The action of watching those numbers climb while Nancy stays missing, it's this weird mix of hope and helplessness. The public wants to solve it, the family wants answers, investigators want leads that stick. Yet the surge keeps coming, and the case stays open. Overwhelming doesn't even cover it. It's a reminder how one disappearance can ripple out and touch so many strangers who feel compelled to call in. What do you think? Does the tip line flood give you more confidence that something will break eventually? Or does the high percentage of false leads make it feel like investigators are drowning in hay while looking for the needle? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'm curious if the scale of public involvement changes how you're seeing the investigation. This is where it gets wild, inheritance speculation. Because with so many tips swirling, some of the more persistent theories online keep circling back to money, who stands to gain, what was discussed behind closed doors. Let's lean into that next. The numbers are staggering, but the questions they raise are even bigger. What does the tip surge do to your overall sense of where this is heading? Let me know down below. At the same time, the DCN angle. Money doesn't always show up waving a flag in these stories. Sometimes it's just the quiet undercurrent that explains why someone might cross a line they never thought they would. Savannah Guthrie has built a solid career, hosting one of the biggest morning shows, book deals, endorsements, and public estimates put her net worth around $40 million. That's no secret, it's out there in every celebrity profile. But Nancy, she wasn't living that kind of life. Her world was smaller, more grounded, a retired woman in a nice but not extravagant home, relying on savings, social security, maybe a modest pension or investments from earlier years. The real asset sitting in plain sight was that house itself, the one place that represented decades of stability, equity built up over time, and potentially the biggest piece of what she'd leave behind. When you start looking at inheritance in a case like this, the house becomes the focal point. It's not about Savannah's millions. It's about what Nancy controlled, a property that, in a hot market, could mean life-changing money for whoever ends up with it. Annie, as the eldest daughter, would naturally be in line for a significant share alongside her sister. Tommaso, married into that, would be tied to whatever decisions Annie makes about assets, timing, or liquidity. If there was any strain, bills piling up, kids' college looming, a business dream that needed capital, the house could quietly become the answer to a lot of problems. Not saying anyone sat down and plotted over spreadsheets, but pressure builds in subtle ways. A conversation here, a suggestion there, mom's not using all that space anymore. Or, we could help her downsize and make things easier. Over months or years, those talks can shift from caring to calculating. This really hit me different, property searches. I spent some time on public records sites, county assessor pages, recent comps in the area, just trying to understand what the house actually represents financially. It's not a mansion, but it's solid, good square footage, desirable location, updates that add value without being flashy. In today's market, that kind of place doesn't sit, it sells fast and high. The equity built into it over decades could be life-altering for heirs, paying off debts, funding retirements, giving kids a head start. When I saw those numbers next to Nancy's age and health realities, the math started feeling heavier. Not dramatic, not scandalous, just real. And in elder cases where vulnerability meets money, that math sometimes turns into motive. Annie needing money, Tommaso helping. That's the uncomfortable whisper that creeps in. If Annie was facing any financial pinch, family expenses, career shifts, whatever private pressures adults deal with, her husband would be right there in the conversation. Tommaso, steady teacher job or not, might see the house as a way to ease things for his wife and kids. Again, no public filings, no lawsuits, no leaked arguments about wills or trusts. But the absence of visible conflict doesn't mean absence of tension. Families can carry unspoken strains for years, resentment over who visits more, who handles the caregiving, who gets the extra help. When the person holding the keys starts declining, those tensions can surface in quiet ways that never make the news. No public disputes. That's the clean part every time this gets raised. No court records of family fights over power of attorney, no guardianship petitions, no probate drama because Nancy's still legally here. The sheriff's clearance in February 2026 covered the immediate circle, and nothing since has contradicted it. Investigators haven't flagged inheritance as a motive publicly. They've stayed on, targeted, without specifics. But the silence around finances doesn't erase the possibility, it just keeps it in the realm of what if. And in a case with no forced entry, no stranger DNA, a carefully planned entry, the idea that someone knew the value inside those walls starts to feel less far-fetched. The whole angle leaves this quiet ache. Thinking about Nancy, independent for so long, now vulnerable, and wondering if the people who should have been her safety net ever saw her home as something to accelerate toward. Really sad to consider. Not because it's proven, but because it's plausible enough to hurt. Let me know, does the inheritance piece, the house as the real asset, the potential unspoken pressures, make this feel more personal and tragic to you, or do you think it's just another layer of speculation that distracts from harder evidence? Drop your thoughts in the comments. This one hits different for me. The crazy thing is, Evans passed. Because if money or family strain is in play, that old minor record from 1999 starts looking like it could fit a pattern, or at least explain why someone might get pulled into something bigger. Hang on, we're shifting to that next. This keeps feeling like everything connects in ways I didn't expect. What does the DC angle stir up for you right now? Tell me down below. But wait, Evans' old arrest. You know, when a name keeps popping up in a case like this, people start digging into the past, and sometimes they find something that doesn't quite fit the harmless teacher picture. Back in 1999, Dominic Evans got picked up for a minor theft. He was young, college age or just out, had too much to drink one night, and decided to walk off with a computer and a watch from someone's place. Not armed robbery, not a string of burglaries, just a dumb, impulsive act while intoxicated. He got caught pretty quick, pleaded to a misdemeanor, did whatever probation or community service the court handed down. And that was it. No violence. No weapons involved, no repeat offenses on record after that. It stayed a one-off blip on his background. But in a disappearance where someone shows up at a front door in the middle of the night, messes with a camera for nearly an hour, and gets away without forcing entry, that 1999 incident starts looking a little less like ancient history. The details aren't dramatic. No lock-picking tools, no sophisticated break-in gear, but it shows a moment where he crossed a line into someone else's space while impaired. He knew enough to take this, and followed through. What gets me is how it echoes the tampering. The guy in the video isn't smashing windows or kicking doors. He's patient, deliberate, using the cover of darkness to work the camera without obvious destruction. It's not the work of a hardened career criminal who leaves pry marks and fingerprints everywhere. It's more the style of someone who's done something similar before, even on a smaller scale, and learned you don't need to make a mess to get what you want. The 1999 theft wasn't about violence, it was about opportunity, impulse, and getting in and out. If you squint at the camera clip, the patience, the lack of panic, the way he lingers without triggering alarms, it feels like the same mindset, just grown up and sober. Not saying it's proof, it's a stretch, but the parallel sits there, uncomfortable and hard to ignore. Old case, no recent. That's the counter every time this comes up. Investigators ran his record early, it's public, it's minor, it's 27 years old. No pattern of theft, no escalating behavior, no arrests since. The sheriff and FBI have never flagged it as relevant in any briefing. They questioned him, released him, and moved on. No probation violations, no civil suits, no neighbor complaints about suspicious activity. It's a closed chapter, and legally it stays that way. But in true crime, hold doesn't always mean irrelevant. A single lapse can teach someone what works and what doesn't, and 27 years is plenty of time to refine instincts without getting caught again. The comparison keeps circling back in my head. A young guy drunk, taking stuff from a place he shouldn't be, getting sloppy enough to get nabbed. Fast forward, a middle-aged guy, sober, approaching a house at night, tampering carefully, leaving no obvious trace, vanishing clean. The scale is different, the stakes higher, but the core, crossing a threshold, taking something you see or someone, exiting without chaos, feels like it could connect. Not because it's the same crime, but because it's the same willingness to bend rules when the moment feels right. This part leaves me with this quiet unease. It's not a smoking gun, it's a shadow. An old mistake that, on its own, means nothing. But layered over everything else, the proximity, the timing, the deliberate nature of the act, it starts to whisper, maybe not coincidence. Really makes you wonder how much weight we should give to someone's past when the present looks this suspicious. Drop your thoughts. Does that 1999 theft feel like a meaningless youthful screw-up to you, or does the way it lines up with the camera guy's careful approach make it hit different in this context? Let me know down below. I'm curious if this detail shifts the picture for anyone else. That's when Annie's public demeanor. Because if Evan's past adds a layer of unease, Annie's quiet presence, the way she carries herself in the little we've seen, pulls us back to the emotional core of the family. Hang on, we're going there next. This keeps feeling like every piece adds weight. What does the old arrest do to your read on Evans right now? Tell me, Annie in the plea video. You know, in cases that drag on with no big breaks, the public gets these small windows into the family's pain, usually through a short clip or statement, and we all become armchair analysts trying to read every micro-expression. Annie's plea video is one of those moments. It came out mid-February 2026, maybe around the 15th or 16th, when the disappearance was already national news. It's brief 30-40 seconds tops, shot outside somewhere simple, natural light, no studio polish. She's standing there, hair back. No makeup, looking straight at the camera. Her voice is steady, but you can hear the strain underneath, like she's holding it together by threads. She talks about missing the everyday things. The phone calls, the little updates about the grandkids, the way Nancy would laugh at something silly. The line that stuck with me, "We just want you home, Mom." Simple words, but the way she says them, eyes glassy, a slight tremble in the lip toward the end. She doesn't break down, doesn't cry on cue, just lets the sadness sit there raw. Looks sad, but limited appearances. That's the thing, this is basically the only time we've really seen Annie speak directly to the public. No follow-up interviews, no press conferences, no social media posts pouring out updates. Savannah's been the voice out front, doing the daily pleas on air, but Annie stays mostly off camera. After this one video, she fades back. It's not suspicious on its own. Some people just aren't built for the spotlight, especially when grief is fresh and cameras are everywhere. But the contrast is stark, one heavy, emotional clip, then silence. It leaves you wondering what's happening behind the quiet. I gotta be honest, watching it multiple times. I pulled it up again and again, slowed it down in places, paused on her face when she says, "Home." The first watch hits you with sympathy, this is a daughter hurting. Second watch, you start noticing the control. She doesn't ramble, doesn't get choked up to the point of stopping, keeps eye contact with the lens like she's speaking to one person. Third watch, the doubt creeps in. Is the composure genuine strength, or practiced? Is the sadness real, or is there something held back? Not saying it's fake, grief doesn't have to be loud to be real, but the restraint feels almost deliberate, like someone who knows exactly what to show and what to hide. That tension between raw emotion and measured delivery is what keeps me replaying it. It's heartbreaking either way. Hiding something about plan with Tommaso. That's the darker question it invites. If there was any coordination, any quiet agreement about timing or next steps, Annie would be the one person who'd have to sell the devastated daughter role perfectly. The limited appearances could be protection, stay out of the spotlight so you don't slip up, or just self-preservation in a media storm. The video itself doesn't scream deception, it screams pain. But pain can coexist with secrets. If she knew more than she's letting on, about routines, about who might have had access, that composure starts looking like armor. Not proof. Just the kind of what if that lingers when someone shows so little after showing so much in one clip. Family supportive per sheriff. That's the official counterweight. In every update from February onward, the sheriff's office has described the family, Annie included, as supportive, cooperative, helpful, no evasion, no stonewalling, no lawyered up vibes. They sat for interviews, shared what they knew, even helped with community outreach in the early days. The clearance hasn't been walked back. So on paper, everything lines up. Grieving daughter makes one heartfelt plea, then steps back to grieve privately while investigators do their work. But the limited visibility after that one video, it creates this tiny crack where doubt slips in. Supportive doesn't mean transparent, and transparent doesn't mean innocent. The emotion here is heavy. Watching Annie speak to her missing mom, knowing Nancy's out there somewhere else, or hoping she is, feeling the achy of a daughter who might never get another call, it's just sad. Whether the video is pure grief or grief mixed with something else, the hurt feels real. And that makes the whole thing harder to watch. What do you guys think? Does Annie's plea video come across as completely genuine to you? Raw, restrained grief from someone who hates the spotlight? Or does the limited follow-up appearances make you wonder if there's more she's not saying? Drop your thoughts in the comments. This one really tugs at different feelings for me. Here's the thing. Traffic restrictions. Because while Annie stayed quiet, the neighborhood around Nancy's house turned into a circus, media trucks, looky-loose, YouTubers, and authorities had to step in with road closures and no parking zones. Let's talk about what that chaos looked like and why it happened next. This keeps showing how one disappearance ripples out and traps everyone in its wake. What does Annie's video leave you feeling right now? Let me know down below. The problem is crowds around the house. You know, when a story like Nancy's hits the national level, Savannah on morning TV every day, the FBI video everywhere, the $1 million reward plastered across headlines, the neighborhood doesn't stay quiet for long. By mid-February 2026, just a couple weeks after she vanished, Catalina Futhiles turned into something out of a true crime documentary set. News vans lined the streets, satellite dishes up, reporters doing live shots at all hours. Then came the YouTubers and independent streamers, people with ring lights, microphones, theories, showing up to investigate. In person. Some parked right on the block. Others walked up to neighbors' doors with cameras rolling, asking if they'd seen anything suspicious. It wasn't just curiosity, it was a circus. People taking selfies in front of the yellow tape, speculating out loud for their followers, turning a residential street into content. February 2026, one-way streets, no parking. The county had to step in hard. They issued temporary traffic controls, one-way flow on Camino Escalante from Hacienda del Sol Road to Cal La Cumbre. No parking zones on several side streets around Nancy's block. Signs went up overnight, deputies enforced it, even towed a few vehicles that ignored the rules. The official reason was public safety and access. Make sure emergency vehicles, school buses, trash trucks, and mail carriers could still get through without getting blocked by the growing mob. They also cited preserving the scene, too many people trampling potential evidence, touching things they shouldn't. It was practical, necessary, but it also made the whole area feel locked down, almost quarantined. This is the part that showed the frenzy. I remember watching local news clips from that week, helicopters overhead, ground crews filming the roadblocks, residents trying to get in and out of their driveways, while microphones got shoved in their faces. One neighbor talked about not being able to sleep because of the constant lights and chatter outside. Another said they felt like prisoners in their own homes. The restrictions weren't just inconvenience, they changed the rhythm of the entire neighborhood. Quiet evenings became tense standoffs between locals and outsiders. And in the middle of it all, Nancy's house sat silent, taped off, while the world argued about what happened inside. To hide evidence or family request. That's the uneasy question that floats around when you see how quickly the county acted. On one hand, the restrictions make perfect sense for an active crime scene, protect footprints, tire marks, any discarded items that might still be out there. But on the other, was there pressure from the family to keep people away, or from investigators who didn't want amateur sleuths contaminating leads? Some online chatter even suggested the roadblocks were convenient for anyone who might want to keep eyes off certain properties nearby. No evidence supports that. The county statements were clear: safety and access first. But when a place goes from peaceful suburb to media zoo overnight, and then gets barricaded, it starts feeling like someone's trying to control the narrative. Really unsettling to watch unfold in real time. For safety per county. That's the line they stuck to every time a reporter asked. Pima County officials released short statements. The measures were temporary, targeted only the affected blocks, would lift when the investigation allowed. No mention of family requests, no hints at hiding anything, just public safety and scene integrity. And honestly, looking at the footage of the crowds, people crowding barriers, yelling questions at deputies, drones buzzing overhead, it's hard to argue against some kind of control. But the optics, they feed the suspicion. A lockdown neighborhood can look like protection or like containment. The shock of the crowd itself is what lingers. Ordinary people turning a family's tragedy into spectacle, live streaming theories, speculating about neighbors, treating the street like a set. It wasn't just annoying, it was invasive. Residents who had nothing to do with Nancy suddenly couldn't park in front of their own homes, couldn't walk their dogs without cameras following. The frenzy showed how fast a private loss becomes public property and how hard authorities have to fight to keep any control. Am I the only one? Does the neighborhood lockdown feel like a reasonable response to the media madness to you, or does the speed and scope of the restrictions make you wonder if there was more to it, like protecting something specific? Drop your thoughts in the comments. This part really highlighted how chaotic the whole thing got on the ground. And then, backpack lead. Because while the streets were being shut down and crowds pushed back, investigators were quietly zeroing in on that one visible item from the footage, the black Ozark Trail backpack. Let's talk about what that simple piece of gear has turned into next. This keeps showing how one detail can pull everything else along. What does the neighborhood chaos leave you thinking about the investigation's environment right now? Let me know down below. This is where it gets wild, the backpack in video. You know, sometimes the most ordinary thing in a piece of evidence becomes the one detail everyone fixates on. In that FBI-released footage, the figure at the door has this black backpack slung over one shoulder, not fancy, not tactical, just a basic hiker-style pack. The FBI called it out specifically, Ozark Trail, 25-liter capacity. The exact model sold almost exclusively at Walmart. You can buy one for like $30 in the camping section of any supercenter. Black nylon, padded straps, front pocket with zipper, side mesh for water bottles, nothing unique, nothing that screams criminal gear. But because it's visible in the clip, clear enough to ID the brand and size, it turned into this quiet focal point for investigators and anyone following along. The backpack sits there on his back the whole time he's working the camera, not swinging wildly, not dropped and forgotten. Straps adjusted tight like it's carrying something he needs close. Could be tools, could be restraints, could be nothing more than a change of clothes or a way to look like a hiker if someone spotted him. But the fact that it's Ozark Trail, Walmart's in-house brand, narrows the shopping possibilities. Not sold at REI or Dick's Sporting Goods or online specialty sites in the same way. You go to Walmart, grab it off the rack, pay cash or card, walk out. No special order, no membership required. It's the kind of item that's everywhere and nowhere at the same time. What I found was store records possibilities. I started thinking about how traceable something like this could be. Walmart keeps purchase data, especially if it's paid with a card, loyalty app, or even just security footage from the aisle. Investigators could pull transaction logs for that specific model around the weeks leading up to January 31st, 2026, cross-reference with Tucson area stores. Look for cash buys in the right time frame. They could even subpoena receipt data or check for returns. The FBI has done it before with common items. Think back to cases where a generic hoodie or a cheap phone charger became the thread that unraveled everything. So the backpack isn't just background, it's potentially a receipt trail, a CCTV hit, a witness who remembers selling one to a guy matching the description. Evans buy it. Tommaso tip him. That's the immediate leap. If someone needed a low-profile pack for whatever they were planning, Walmart's the easy stop. Evans, local teacher, dad, lives in the area, could walk in, buy it anonymously with cash, no questions. Or Tommaso, who knows the family routines, could mention offhand, "Hey, if you're heading out at night, grab something plain from Walmart." Not saying there's any record of either doing it, no public link, no leaked receipt with a name. But the accessibility makes it plausible. Anyone in the circle could have picked one up without raising eyebrows. It's not a rare tactical bag that only preppers buy, it's the everyman's choice. No purchases linked. That's the frustrating reality so far. As of the March 2026 updates, the sheriff and FBI haven't announced any breakthrough tied to the backpack. No. We traced a sale to X. No security footage from a Walmart parking lot showing a familiar face. They keep asking the public to look for it. If you sold one recently or saw someone with it, call us. But no hits reported. It could be because the buyer paid cash, no card trail, or used a different store farther out. Or maybe it's still sitting in evidence as a dead-end clue. Either way, the absence of a link doesn't kill the lead, it just keeps it simmering. The whole thing is oddly compelling. A $30 backpack becomes this symbol of everyday planning in what looks like a calculated act. Not high-tech gear, not stolen from a specialty shop, just something grabbed off a shelf because it's cheap, functional, and forgettable. Really makes you think about how ordinary items can hide in plain sight. The fact that it's Walmart exclusive narrows the geography a bit. Tucson has plenty of Walmarts, but widens the pool of who could have bought it. Anyone. Everyone. And that's what makes it stick. Does this make sense? Like, does the Ozark Trail backpack feel like a smart, low-key choice that points to someone practical and local? Or does it just seem like too common an item to ever crack the case? Drop your thoughts in the comments. This one's been living rent-free in my head since I first saw the clip. But wait, gun and footage. Because if the backpack is the everyday clue, the short-barreled handgun visible in the guy's hand is the one that raises the stakes completely. Let's talk about what that weapon adds to the picture next. This keeps escalating in ways that feel heavier every time. What does the backpack detail do to your sense of how prepared this person was? Let me know down below. So, the guy has a gun. You know, up until you see it clearly in the footage, the whole scene feels tense but somehow abstract, a figure messing with a camera in the dark. Then the frame sharpens just enough, and there it is, a short-barreled handgun in his right hand, held low near his hip, barrel pointed down but ready, not waved around for show, not tucked away completely, just there, visible, like a quiet reminder that this isn't a prank or a simple trespass. The FBI highlighted it in their February 10 release, short barrel, possibly a revolver or compact semi-auto, dark finish, no obvious suppressor or extended mag, nothing flashy, nothing that screams professional hitman gear. Just a comment. concealable firearm that could fit in a pocket or waistband without printing too much. It's visible the entire time he's working the camera. About 45 minutes of tampering. From 1:45 a.m. to roughly 2:30 a.m., he never raises it, never points it at the lens or the door. It's held casually, almost relaxed, like it's insurance rather than the main tool. That restraint makes it scarier in a way. A panicked person might wave it, drop it, fumble. This looks controlled. Deliberate. Like someone who brought it because they knew they might need it. To threaten, to force compliance, to end resistance if things went wrong. The threat level jumps the second you register the weapon. This wasn't a burglary gone sideways. This was someone prepared for confrontation. What struck me was the boldness. Walking up to a front door in a nice neighborhood, gun in hand, lingering for nearly an hour under porch light and possible neighbor windows, that's not timid. That's confident. Either the person believed no one would see them, or they didn't care if they were seen. In a quiet area like Catalina Foothills, where people notice strange cars, but might not call right away at 2 a.m., that confidence feels earned. Maybe from prior scouting, maybe from knowing the routines, maybe from knowing the person inside wouldn't fight back hard. Really chilling when you think about it. A handgun isn't just a prop here, it's the reason the entry stayed clean. No forced door, no broken glass, because the threat was already in hand. Evan's own one. Or borrowed. That's the immediate gut check question. Firearms aren't rare in Arizona, open carry, concealed permits, gun stores on every major road. Evans, as a local teacher and dad, could legally own one if he passed the background, no felonies on record after 1999. Or it could be borrowed from a friend, bought cash off someone, never registered in his name. No public record ties him to a specific gun, no search warrant hits announced. But the profile fits, short-barreled, easy to conceal, not exotic. If it's someone in the circle, they wouldn't need to go far to get one. The boldness of carrying it openly on camera suggests familiarity, not a first-timer shaking with nerves, but someone who knows how to handle it without drama. No ballistics yet. That's the hard stop. Investigators haven't released any shell casings, no fired rounds from the scene, no gunshot residue hits. The gun was never discharged, at least not in a way that left evidence on the property. No bullet holes, no casings recovered in the yard or street. So no ballistics match possible right now. The FBI and task force are still working with the video enhancement, trying to narrow make or model caliber from the grainy frames, comparing to known firearms databases, hoping for a serial number if it ever surfaces. But as of mid-March 2026, nothing public. The weapon remains a visual clue, not a forensic one. That lack of physical tieback keeps it frustrating. We see it, we know it's real, but it hasn't led to a gun shop receipt or a range log or a witness who sold it. The worry spikes when you remember who's on the other side of that door. Nancy, 84, pacemaker dependent, needs daily heart meds, mobility already limited, facing someone armed and patient. Even if the gun was only for intimidation, the stress alone could be lethal for someone in her condition. Heart racing, fear spiking. No quick way to escape or call for help once the camera's down. That image, frail elderly woman, armed intruder, no forced entry because the threat was enough, it's the part that hits hardest. The weapon isn't just evidence, it's the reason this feels like it could have gone wrong in seconds. What do you think? Does the presence of the gun, calm, controlled, never fired, make this feel more like a targeted grab with a backup plan, or does it still read as over-prepared opportunism? Drop your thoughts in the comments. This detail really raises the stakes for me every time I rewatch. At the same time, Nancy's health. Because the gun in hand collides head-on with how fragile she was medically. Let's talk about what her pacemaker, her meds, her age meant in that moment next. This keeps getting heavier. What does the weapon do to your sense of threat level here? Let me know down below. Nancy's medical stuff. You know, when you peel back the layers of a case like this, the victim's vulnerabilities often become the quiet center of everything. Nancy Guthrie was 84. Not ancient by today's standards, but far from young. She had a pacemaker keeping her heart rhythm steady. That's a serious piece of hardware, surgically implanted, wired directly into the muscle. It means her heart couldn't be trusted on its own anymore. One glitch, one skipped beat, and things could cascade fast. On top of that, she needed daily medications, the kind you set alarms for because missing even one dose can throw electrolytes off, spike blood pressure, or trigger arrhythmia. We're talking beta blockers, blood thinners, maybe diuretics or antiarrhythmics. The exact cocktail isn't public, but the sheriff's office mentioned she required daily medication for her cardiac condition. That's code for, without it, she's in real trouble. Mobility issues layered on top. Reports described her as having difficulty walking long distances, probably using a cane or walker around the house. Maybe a chairlift or handrails for stairs. Nothing extreme enough to make her bedridden, but enough that she wasn't sprinting to the door or fighting off someone in a struggle. She lived alone, which amplified every risk. No one there to notice if she felt dizzy, no one to grab her pills if she dropped them, no one to call 911 if the pacemaker acted up. A normal night for her might have meant locking up early, taking meds at 9 p.m., settling in with the TV low, lights off by 10 or 11. Vulnerable doesn't even cover it. She was fragile in a way that made any sudden disruption potentially lethal. This really hit me different, thinking about her alone. Picture it 2 a.m., house dark. She's probably asleep or dozing in a recliner, heart monitor beeping softly in the background. Then someone approaches, gun in hand, camera down, internet possibly cut. If she woke up to a noise, to a shadow at the door, to a voice she recognized, what could she do? Run. Fight. Call out. With mobility limited and heart condition fragile, resistance could have ended badly in seconds. Adrenaline spike, arrhythmia triggered, collapse. The thought of her facing that fear, knowing her body might betray her before help arrived, it's just heartbreaking. Not dramatic Hollywood panic, but quiet terror in the dark, alone with her own heartbeat failing to cooperate. Insiders like Annie know this, plan to exploit. That's the part that twists the knife. Annie, as the eldest daughter living nearby, would have been intimately familiar with Nancy's routine. What time she takes pills, which days she has doctor appointments, how far she can walk without resting, what signs of distress look like. Tommaso, through marriage and regular visits, would know too. If anyone had motive to time something perfectly, waiting until after meds but before the next dose, knowing a scare could overwhelm her system, without a fight, family would have the blueprint. Not saying it happened that way, no evidence points there. But the knowledge gap between stranger and loved one is huge. A stranger grabs at random, someone close grabs with precision. Sheriff believes alive March 2026. That's the one thread of hope they keep repeating. In briefings, the sheriff has said multiple times, "We have no evidence she has been harmed. We believe she is still alive." No body, no blood, no signs of struggle that indicate immediate violence. They lean on that to keep the public engaged, to keep tips coming. But belief isn't certainty. With her pacemaker and meds dependency, every day without access increases the risk exponentially. No refill on prescriptions, no battery check on the device, no one monitoring vitals. Time works against her. The sheriff's optimism feels like a deliberate choice to project hope, but it clashes with the medical reality. An 84-year-old with cardiac issues, abducted and held somewhere unknown, isn't in a low-risk situation. The sadness here is deep and constant. Nancy wasn't just any victim, she was someone whose body was already fighting every day. The pacemaker kept her going, the meds bought time, but they also made her dependent on routine, on access, on people who cared enough to help. If that dependence was ever turned against her, it's the kind of betrayal that hurts to even imagine. Really, really heavy when you sit with it. An elderly woman who should have been safest at home, now missing. Her survival tied to things she can't control. Let me know. Does Nancy's medical fragility make this case feel more urgent and tragic to you, like every passing day is a countdown? Or do you find some comfort in the sheriff's belief she's still alive? Drop your thoughts in the comments. This part sits with me differently every time I think about it. The crazy thing is, task force formation. Because even with all the vulnerabilities laid bare, investigators ramped up in March 2026 with a dedicated full-time team. Let's talk about what that shift means and where the extra resources are going next. This keeps reminding me how much is still in motion. What does Nancy's health reality do to your emotions right now? Tell me down below. That's when the task force in March. By early March 2026, about 5 weeks in, with no major break, the investigation hit a pivot point. The Pima County Sheriff and the FBI announced they were standing up a dedicated task force, 5 full-time sheriff's deputies pulled from regular duties, paired with FBI agents assigned exclusively to this case. No part-timers, no rotating shifts. This was a core team working the leads around the clock. They set up in a shared space, pulling in analysts, digital forensics specialists, and even behavioral people when needed. The sheriff called it a focused effort to streamline everything: tips, forensics, interviews, surveillance review. It wasn't just optics, it was a signal that the case wasn't going cold on their watch. The structure made sense on paper. Local deputies know the streets, the neighborhoods, the people who lives where, who has grudges, who might have seen something small but telling. FBI brings the big resources, national databases, lab access at Quantico, expertise in abduction patterns, financial tracing if it ever goes there. Together, they could chase down the 19,000 tips faster, interview neighbors with fresh eyes, dig into phone records or financials without splitting focus. The announcement came with a quiet urgency. We're committing full-time personnel because we believe this is solvable, and we're going to solve it. No drama, no hype, just a clear shift from reactive to proactive, digging deeper into family friends like Evans. That's the natural suspicion when you see a task force ramp up this way. With the family cleared early, but the circle still close, longtime friends, bandmates, people who knew routines, a dedicated team has the bandwidth to peel those layers without distraction. Re-interview Evans with new questions, pull his phone data again, check alibis against the utility box timeline or the ring perimeter footage. Look at who he talks to, where he goes, what he buys. Same for anyone else in that orbit, former bandmates, co-workers, neighbors who might have overheard casual talk. The task force setup screams, we're not done looking inward. Even if they won't say it out loud. It's the kind of quiet escalation that makes you sit up. I gotta be honest, this gives hope but raises questions. Hope because 5 deputies plus FBI agents isn't cheap or casual. It means they're treating this like a priority, believing there's a path forward. Questions because, why now? Why not sooner? Was there a tip or forensic hit in late February that forced the reorganization? Or did the sheer volume of false leads and dead ends finally convince them they needed a tighter, full-time unit? Either way, the move feels like acknowledgement. The initial response wasn't enough, and they're doubling down before the trail goes completely cold. That honesty from them, admitting they need more horsepower, is rare and kind of refreshing, but it also underscores how stubborn this case has been. No arrests. That's the stark reality even with the task force humming. March updates stayed consistent, active, progressing, following leads, but no one in custody, no charges filed, no public person of interest named. The team is grinding, re-examining the camera frames, chasing down new ring submissions, running more genealogy on the unrelated glove DNA, but nothing has crossed the finish line yet. It keeps the tension alive. Resources are there. People are working full-time, yet Nancy remains missing. The absence of an arrest after this level of commitment makes every passing day feel heavier. The whole shift leaves this mix of cautious optimism and quiet frustration. A task force means they're serious, not giving up. But seriousness doesn't guarantee speed or results. It just means the machine is running at full capacity and still hasn't found the key yet. Drop your thoughts. Does the full-time task force announcement give you more confidence that something's brewing behind the scenes? Or does the lack of arrests this far make it feel like even more resources might not be enough? Let me know down below. This pivot changed how I'm tracking the momentum. Here's the thing, online sleuths. Because while the official team was forming up, the internet side exploded, YouTubers at the scene, Reddit threads dissecting every frame, amateur investigators naming names. Let's talk about how that parallel universe of speculation has collided with the real investigation next. This keeps showing how many layers this thing has running at once. What does the task force formation do to your sense of where things stand right now? Tell me. The problem is internet buzz. As soon as the FBI video dropped in mid-February 2026, the online world didn't just watch, it mobilized. Within hours, true crime YouTubers were booking flights to Tucson, setting up live streams from the edge of the yellow tape, walking the same streets as deputies. Some parked RVs nearby, turned their channels into 2047 coverage, Day 18 update, walking the neighborhood right now, panning cameras over houses, zooming on mailboxes, speculating out loud about who lives where. Others stayed remote but went frame by frame on the footage, posting breakdowns titled, "The Tattoo Glitch, Proof It's Him," or "Why the Backpack Screams Local." Reddit threads exploded, true crime discussion, Nancy Guthrie, even spin-off subs, thousands of comments dissecting every pixel, every shadow. Tattoo theories on Evans took off fast. Someone grabbed an old band photo from early black socials, grainy shot from a gig years back, and side by side it with the enhanced wrist glitch in the video. Look at the ink peeking out, same placement, same shape. Posts racked up upvotes, cross-posted everywhere. People dug up his teaching bio, found old yearbook pics, even pulled driver license estimates for height and build. It spread like wildfire. Evans matches 100%. The tattoo seals it. No official confirmation, no FBI statement mentioning ink, but the theory lived its own life. Other rumors layered on, heard from a source, that Tommaso and Evans were seen arguing at a bar last month. Or, Annie's socials went private right after, hiding something. Some point to Tommaso-Annie plan. That one got darker quick. Threads built elaborate timelines, dinner drop-off at 9:30 p.m., camera tampering starting 1:45 a.m. Plenty of time for Tommaso to brief someone. People posted maps of the neighborhood, marking Annie's house, Evans' address doxed from old records, Nancy's place. Drawing lines like it was a conspiracy board. Inheritance motive, house worth millions, Annie needs cash for kids' school, Tommaso helps coordinate. Evans does the dirty work. Screenshots of old Facebook comments, vague posts about family stress, got weaponized as proof. It wasn't evidence, it was pattern-seeking run wild. But once it started, it fed itself, more views, more comments, more fuel. What gets me is how it mirrors real clues. The scariest part isn't the wild leaps. It's when the online frenzy accidentally lines up with official stuff. Someone notices the Ozark Trail backpack is Walmart exclusive, threads flood with Evans shops at the Walmart on Oracle Road. Check his receipts. Another spots the short-barreled gun profile. Arizona teachers can carry concealed, Evans has a permit. None of it verified. But the overlap with actual leads, backpack brand, gun visibility makes the noise feel eerily prescient. Really unnerving how amateur speculation can echo the real investigation without ever touching facts. Sheriff warns against. The Pima County Sheriff addressed it head-on in late February and again in March 2026. We appreciate public interest, but online speculation, doxing, and unverified theories are harming the investigation and the family. He called out the crowds. YouTubers and amateur sleuths showing up at the scene are contaminating potential evidence and harassing residents. They even threatened trespass charges for anyone crossing barriers. The warning was firm: focus on official channels, stop naming people without proof, don't turn neighbors into targets. But warnings don't stop the internet, They sometimes accelerated. Views spiked after the sheriff's comments, people posting, "They don't want us to know the truth." The shock of the frenzy is how fast it turned private pain into public entertainment. Residents who had nothing to do with Nancy suddenly had drones over their yards, strangers knocking at doors, their addresses posted online. The neighborhood lockdown we saw earlier, partly a response to this very chaos. And through it all, Nancy's still missing, the task force is grinding, but the online machine keeps churning doubt and accusation. Am I the only one? Does the explosion of online sleuths and rumor mills make you more skeptical of everything? Or do you think some of these theories, even the wild ones, might accidentally point investigators in a useful direction? Drop your thoughts in the comments. This side of the case feels like its own separate storm. And then, reward strategy. Because while the internet was spinning theories, the family and FBI kept pushing the reward higher to cut through the noise. Let's talk about how that $1 million offer changed the game next. This keeps showing how many forces are pulling at once. What does the online frenzy do to your trust in what we're actually seeing? Let me know down below. This is important. Family ups to $1 million February 2026. You know, when a case drags past the 2-week mark with no solid break, the people left hurting start grasping for anything that might move the needle. In mid-February 2026, right around day 15 or 16, the family announced they were adding to the reward pot. The FBI had already put up $1,000 for information leading to Nancy's safe return or the arrest and conviction of anyone responsible. The family pushed it higher, way higher, to a total of $1 million. Savannah made the announcement in one of her on-air segments, voice steady, but eyes telling the story. "We're offering $1 million for her safe return. Please, if you know anything, come forward." It wasn't just money, it was a public cry. "We're willing to empty everything we have if it brings her back." For safe return. Tips surge. The wording mattered. They didn't say, "arrest and conviction," like the FBI portion. They emphasized, "safe return," which kept the door open for whoever had her to walk away with cash and no questions if they released her unharmed. It was strategic. Lower the risk for someone sitting on her, make it feel possible to cash out without ending up in cuffs. And it worked, at least on volume. The tip line spiked again right after the announcement. Calls poured in from people who suddenly remembered seeing something, from psychics claiming visions, from folks who thought their neighbor's basement looked suspicious. The task force had to triage even harder, more bodies on phones, more analysts sorting wheat from chaff, but the surge showed the reward hit a nerve. People who might have stayed quiet suddenly picked up the phone. This is the part that showed family pain. Watching Savannah deliver that number on national television, $1 million, felt like watching someone lay their cards on the table. This wasn't a celebrity flex, it was desperation wrapped in hope. The family wasn't just grieving, they were bargaining with the universe. Take the money, give her back. You could hear it in the way Savannah paused before saying the amount, like it hurt to even voice it. Annie wasn't on camera for that one, but the weight was shared. Behind the scenes, coordinating with lawyers, donors, maybe even dipping into personal savings or liquidating assets to make the number real. That kind of move screams, "We'll do anything." Really heavy when you sit with it. A family turning their own resources into a lifeline, knowing it might not even reach the right person. To flush out Evans if involved. That's the darker angle some people whisper. If someone close, a friend of the family circle, someone who knows the routines, is sitting on information, or worse, $1 million might be the one thing that cracks their silence. Make it personal. You could walk away rich, no jail. Just give her back. It lowers the stakes for an insider who might be panicking, second-guessing, or looking for an exit. No proof that's who the family had in mind. They never said anything like that. But the timing, right after certain names started circulating online, makes you wonder if the reward was partly aimed at the edges of the known circle. A way to say, without saying, we know it's someone who knows us, come clean, take the money. Many false leads. That's the brutal flip side. The tip surge brought volume, but it also brought chaos. More psychics, more "I saw her in my dream" calls, more grainy photos of random older women at truck stops. The task force had to chase credible ones while ignoring the rest, but every false lead eats time. Investigators get pulled to dead-end addresses, interview people who just wanted attention, waste hours verifying nothing. The reward amplified the noise, good intentions mixed with opportunists, trolls, and attention seekers. Yet the family kept it up. They didn't pull back, didn't lower the amount. They doubled down, even knowing most tips would be junk. That commitment alone, it hurts to see. The emotion here is raw. $1 million on the table isn't abstract, it's sacrifice. It's the family saying out loud that Nancy's worth more than anything they own. And still, weeks later, no one has claimed it. No safe return, no credible handoff. Just silence on the other end. That quiet after the big offer feels louder than any rumor. What do you think? Does the family pushing the reward to $1 million feel like a powerful act of love and desperation to you? Or does it make the case seem even more hopeless when so many tips lead nowhere? Drop your thoughts in the comments. This move hit me in the chest when I first heard it. But wait, sheriff's warning. Because right around the same time the reward climbed, the sheriff came out with a public caution that added a whole new layer of unease. Let's go there next. This keeps reminding me how much pressure is building on every side. What does the $1 million offer do to your feelings about the family's state of mind right now? Let me know down below. Sheriff says could happen again. You know, when the person leading the investigation drops a line like that in the middle of a briefing, it doesn't just hang in the air, it lingers. In March 2026, one of those mid-month updates, maybe the 12th or 13th, the Pima County Sheriff looked right at the cameras and said it plain. We want the community to keep their wits about them. This person could strike again. He didn't yell it, didn't lean into drama, he just stated it like a fact they had to consider. Keep your wits about you. That's old school cop language for stay alert, lock your doors, don't ignore odd noises at night. Coming from the sheriff himself, it carried weight. The full context was a quick presser outside the task force offices. He was recapping progress, tips still coming in, team still grinding, then pivoted to the caution. We have no evidence of additional victims at this time, but given the nature of this incident, we believe it's prudent to remind residents, especially those in similar situations, to be vigilant. Similar situations meant elderly folks living alone, homes with basic security, quiet neighborhoods where people don't expect trouble. It wasn't a blanket lockdown tuxin. It was targeted advice. Check your cameras, don't open the door to strangers at night, report anything off. The sheriff even mentioned community outreach, flyers going out, neighborhood watches getting briefed, to make sure the message landed without causing panic. What I found was chilling interviews. The sheriff did a couple follow-ups with local outlets right after. In one, a Tosun TV station asked straight up, "Are you saying this could be a serial offender?" He didn't bite hard. We don't have evidence of a pattern yet. But he didn't shut it down either. The way this was carried out, the planning, the patience, suggests someone who thought it through. We don't want to assume it's isolated until we know more. Another reporter pressed on the "strike again" line, and he repeated it. Better to be cautious than caught off guard. The tone wasn't alarmist, but the repetition made it sink in. This wasn't boilerplate. Stay safe. Advice. It was a calculated warning based on what they'd seen so far. If targeted, why Guthrie? House link. That's the question that keeps circling. If the sheriff truly believes it's targeted, specific to Nancy, not random, then why warn the broader community about another strike? Does it mean they think the motive could apply to others? Like, if it's about exploiting vulnerability in elderly women living alone, isolation, predictable routines, valuable property sitting empty, then yeah, Nancy wouldn't be the only one fitting that profile in Tucson. The house angle creeps in here, a nice property in a desirable area, no one else living there, equity built up over decades. If the motive ties to that, financial gain, impatience with inheritance, or even just the ease of accessing someone who can't fight back, then the warning makes grim sense. Why her specifically? Maybe she was the easiest mark or the one someone knew best. But if the pattern holds, others could be next, not 100% sure targeted. Here's where it gets murky. In the same briefing, the sheriff hedged just a little. We believe this was targeted, but we're not 100% ruling out other possibilities. That tiny crack in certainty, not 100%, keeps the door open to random or opportunistic angles. Maybe it's a home invasion that escalated, or someone scouting for valuables who picked the wrong house. But the caution about striking again leans hard toward, this isn't over. If it was truly one and done, why the public warning? Why flyers to seniors? The hedge feels like legal caution. Don't overstate what you can prove, but the warning itself screams concern that the risk profile matches more than just Nancy. The low-low-in-G here is real and constant. Thinking about other elderly residents in quiet neighborhoods, checking their locks a little extra at night, wondering if their routines are as predictable as Nancy's were. The sheriff isn't trying to scare people, he's trying to protect them. But the fact that he felt the need to say it out loud, that alone tells you how seriously they're taking the possibility of repetition. Really unsettling when the top cop in the county tells you to stay alert because the person who took Nancy might not be done. Does this make sense? Like, does the sheriff's could strike again warning feel like a responsible precaution based on what they've seen, or does it make the targeted label feel less certain and more like they're hedging on a bigger threat? Drop your thoughts in the comments. This part gave me chills when I first heard it. At the same time, Plea video's evolution. Because while the sheriff was warning the public, the family kept putting out appeals that changed tone over time, from raw grief to something more direct, almost like they were speaking straight to the person responsible. Let's look at how those messages shifted next. This keeps layering on the urgency from every angle. What does the strike again caution do to your sense of safety in a case like this? Let me know down below. So, the videos from Savannah and Annie. As weeks turned into months with no big break, the family didn't just sit silent, they kept putting out these appeals, and you could feel the tone shift a little each time. Savannah's were the most visible at first. She's on TV every morning, so she'd slip in a quick message during segments or do standalone clips. But Annie's were rarer, more contained, and when they came, they landed different. One that really stuck was from late February or early March 2026, short, maybe 45 seconds, filmed simple, probably in someone's living room or backyard. Savannah spoke first in a lot of these joint ones, but Annie would chime in toward the end. Voice quieter, eyes locked on the lens like she was talking to one person. The line that kept coming back, "It's never too late." Savannah said it in several clips, direct, almost pleading. "Whoever has my mom, it's never too late to let her go. We don't want questions asked, we just want her home safe." Annie echoed it in her own way, softer, but pointed the same direction. "Mom, if you're hearing this, we're waiting. And to whoever is with her, please. It's never too late." No threats, no anger, just this repeated offer of a way out. No punishment, no pursuit, just return her. They even added the reward reminder, a $1 million for her safe return, no questions. It felt like they were negotiating in public, speaking straight to the kidnapper, trying to lower whatever barrier was keeping Nancy away. I dug into them, heartbreaking. I went back and watched every one I could find, Savannah's on-air moments, the joint family clips, Annie's brief appearances. Savannah's voice would crack sometimes, especially when she talked about Nancy's laugh or how she misses the little phone calls. Annie stayed more composed, But there was this heaviness in her pauses, the way she'd swallow before saying, "It's never too late." Like she was forcing the words out past a lump in her throat. One clip, I think from March, had Annie adding, "We know you're watching. Please, just bring her home." The direct address, the assumption that the person responsible is out there seeing it, that hit hard. You could feel the exhaustion, the hope wearing thin, but refusing to break. Really tough to sit through without feeling the ache. These weren't polished PSAs. They were parents, siblings, daughters reaching into the void, hoping the right person was listening. Annie's role, knowing more. That's the quiet doubt that creeps in when you watch her parts. She's not the public face like Savannah, so her appearances carry extra weight. When she speaks, it's measured, controlled, like someone choosing every word carefully. Is that just her personality, private, reserved, or is there something held back? If she knows more about who might have had access, who knew the routines, who could have timed this, her composure starts looking like restraint for a reason. The "it's never too late" line, coming from her, feels almost personal, like she's speaking to someone she might recognize, someone who knows her voice. Not accusing, just the natural question when someone so close stays, so measured while the world spins around them. No response yet. That's the brutal part. All these appeals, direct, emotional, offering a clean exit with money on the table, and nothing. No call to the tip line saying, "I'm ready to let her go." No safe drop-off. No sign the messages reached the right ears. The silence after each video is deafening. The family keeps putting them out, tweaking the wording slightly. More emphasis on no questions. More on Nancy's health, more on how loved she is. But the lack of any echo back makes each one feel heavier than the last. It's like shouting into a canyon and hearing only your own voice return. The emotion here is constant and deep. These aren't scripted, they're raw. You hear the love, the fear, the fading hope in every take. Thinking about Nancy, wherever she is, maybe hearing her daughter's voices, maybe not, maybe too weak from missed meds to even process. It's just sad. The family is still fighting the only way they can right now, with words, with offers, with everything they have left, and still waiting. Let me know, does the evolution of these plea videos, from raw grief to direct appeals to the kidnapper, make you feel more for the family's desperation, or does the repeated "it's never too late" with no response make the whole thing feel even more heartbreaking and futile? Drop your thoughts in the comments. These clips get to me every time. The crazy thing is, DNA genealogy wait. Because while the family keeps pleading, the task force is still grinding on the one forensic piece they have from the scene. That unrelated glove DNA they're trying to trace through family trees. Let's talk about where that science stands next. This keeps reminding me how much is happening on parallel tracks. What do these evolving pleas leave you feeling about the family's mindset right now? Tell me down below. Here's the thing, ongoing DNA pedigree, When regular database checks come back empty, investigators don't just shrug and move on. They turn to something slower, but potentially way more powerful, investigative genetic genealogy. The gloves found near Nancy's place had DNA on them, but it traced to that unrelated restaurant worker, contamination from manufacturing or stocking, not the person who wore them that night. So they didn't toss the profile, they sent it deeper. They're building family trees from public DNA databases, looking for distant cousins or second cousins who might share enough markers to point toward a closer relative. It's the same method that cracked decades-old cold cases, where a single upload to GEDmatch or family tree DNA can lead to a name in months instead of years. The process is meticulous. Labs extract the usable DNA. Touch samples are tricky because they're low quantity, degraded sometimes, then run it through SNP analysis for those genealogy-friendly markers. They upload to consented public databases, wait for matches, then start constructing trees. Who shares this segment of DNA? Who lives in Arizona? Who has ties to Tucson? Private investigators or genealogists hired by the task force do the legwork, contacting matches, with permission ruleless, asking about relatives who might fit the profile. Narrowing from hundreds of names to dozens to a handful. It's science meets detective work, and it's slow. Really slow. We're talking weeks to months for meaningful hits, longer if databases are sparse or matches are reluctant. This really hit me, the science behind it. I started reading up on how it works, articles from forensic journals. Cases like the Golden State Killer, where one cousin's upload led to the suspect. The hope is real, even if the gloves weren't worn by the perpetrator. If the DNA belongs to someone peripheral, a handler, a plant, someone who touched them before, a family tree could still surface a connection. More samples. They're probably collecting quietly, from the utility box cables, from any additional items recovered in the search grid, from neighbors, discarded trash, if warrants allow. The task force has the resources now. They're not limited to one profile. If they get a stronger sample from somewhere else, they run it parallel. The science gives this quiet optimism. We might not have a direct hit yet, but the method has solved harder puzzles. Match Evans' relatives. That's the question that won't leave me alone. If the DNA belongs to a distant cousin or second cousin of Evans, or someone in his extended family circle, a genealogy hit could light up that branch of the tree. No need for a direct CODIS match. Just enough shared markers to say, this profile is related to this person. It wouldn't prove guilt, but it would give investigators a reason to pull phone records, re-interview, look at travel history with fresh eyes. Again, no public indication that's happened, no leaks, no briefings saying, we're close on genealogy. But the possibility sits there, tantalizing. If the perpetrator is someone local, someone with ties to the family orbit, the odds of a familial match go up. Time-consuming, no updates March. That's the reality check. As of mid-March 2026, the sheriff's updates were vague on this front. Forensic work, including genetic genealogy, is ongoing. No timeline. No, we expect results soon. No, we have promising leads. Genealogy isn't fast, labs are backlogged, matches need verification, trees take weeks to build properly. The task force is full-time, but science doesn't speed up because you're desperate. So we wait, and waiting in a case like this, where every day increases the risk to Nancy, feels excruciating. The hope, though, it's real. This isn't wishful thinking, it's a proven tool. If the right match uploads, if the tree points to someone who fits the profile, height, local ties, access, it could be the break that changes everything. Not tomorrow, maybe not next week, but the science is patient. And right now, patience is what they've got. What do you guys think? Does the ongoing genetic genealogy work give you a sense that a breakthrough could still come out of nowhere, or does the lack of any update by March make it feel like another slow burn dead end? Drop your thoughts in the comments. This part keeps me checking for news every day. This is where it gets wild, vehicles review. Because while we're waiting on the DNA trees to grow, investigators have been poring over that new ring footage from the neighborhood edges, those vehicles caught moving in the early morning hours. Let's dive back into what those clips might still reveal next. This keeps reminding me how many threads are still being pulled. What does the genealogy angle do to your hope level right now? Let me know down below. And then, ring footage of cars. You know, sometimes the breakthrough doesn't come from the crime scene itself. It comes from the edges, the places no one thinks to look right away. Around late February 2026, day 26 or so of the active search, a resident a few streets over from Nancy's block handed over their Ring doorbell footage to investigators. The sheriff confirmed it in a short update. Several vehicles captured moving through the outer perimeter of the neighborhood in the early morning hours of February 1. Not right on her street, not circling her block like predators, but on the access roads leading in and out of Catalina Futhiles, the kind of quiet connectors that let you slip away without crossing every main camera. The clips are short and low light, typical Ring quality at 4:30 to 6 a.m. You see a couple of sedans and what looks like a mid-size SUV rolling slow, headlights dimmed but on. One pauses at an intersection for a few seconds, brake lights glowing red against the dark, then continues straight. Another appears to circle back once, like it's double-checking the route before heading toward the main artery. No doors open, no people visible getting in or out, no obvious rush or panic. Just movement, deliberate, unhurried, almost routine. The timing is brutal. This is hours after the camera tampering wrapped at 2:30 a.m. Right in the window when Nancy would have already been gone long enough for someone to load her up and drive out without immediate pursuit. What struck me was potential getaway. When I first saw the stills, leaked to local news sites, then picked up wider, I paused on the shapes. A darker sedan, maybe a Honda Accord or Toyota Camry, common as dirt in Tucson. The SUV looks mid-size, possibly a Ford Escape or similar, nothing flashy. Practical vehicles, the kind teachers or families drive. No plates readable in the low light, angles bad. Resolution not sharp enough for auto recognition software to lock anything down yet. But the path they take, skirting the neighborhood edges, avoiding the core streets where Nancy's house sits, screams exit strategy. Someone who knew the layout, knew which roads have fewer eyes, knew how to disappear into morning commuter traffic without looking suspicious. Really tense thinking about it. These aren't random cars, they're moving like people who planned the off-ramp before the on-ramp. Tomaso's or Evan's vehicle. That's the immediate gut punch. Both live in the greater Tucson area, easy access to those perimeter roads at dawn. Teachers' cars are practical, unremarkable, exactly the profile that blends in. Tomaso could have been running a quick loop to check if the coast was clear. Evans could have been the wheelman waiting off-site. Or neither, could be unrelated neighbors heading to work early. No public match announced, no DMV hits leaked, no, this vehicle belongs to X from the task force. But the silhouette, the timing, the path, it fits in a way that's hard to unsee once you overlay it with the known circle. No plates ID'd. That's the wall. The task force said in early March updates, the footage is under active review, enhancement ongoing, plate recognition software running where possible, cross-checks with traffic cams and nearby businesses. But so far, nothing definitive. Light was bad, angles oblique. Plates either dirty, missing, or just not captured cleanly. No make or model confirmed publicly beyond sedans and SUV. It keeps the lead alive but frustrating. We have actual moving images from the critical morning, potential transport vehicles tied to the abduction window, and no ID. The silence on progress after weeks of review makes every day feel like they're grinding without traction. The whole thing leaves this knot in your stomach. Ordinary cars doing ordinary things at the exact wrong hour, while an 84-year-old woman is already missing. It turns the abduction from a house-bound event into something mobile, planned, with an escape route thought out in advance. Not a panicked grab and run, a calculated in and out with wheels waiting. That realization hits heavy. Am I the only one? Does seeing those vehicles on the outskirts, slow, deliberate, perfectly timed, make the whole operation feel more organized and chilling to you? Or do you think they could still turn out to be unrelated early morning traffic? Drop your thoughts in the comments. This footage changed how I'm picturing the morning after. The problem is public vigilance calls. Because right around the same time this Ring footage surfaced, the sheriff started leaning harder into community pleas. If you have any surveillance from that morning, please send it in. Let's talk about how those calls for help from the public are playing out next. This keeps showing how much still depends on what regular people might have captured without knowing it. What do these perimeter cars do to your mental image of how this unfolded? Let me know down below. Authorities urge tips. When an investigation stretches this long without a big public breakthrough, the people running it have no choice but to turn back to the community and basically beg for help. By March 2026, the sheriff and FBI were leaning hard into that strategy, not just passive. If you know something, call us. But active, repeated, almost desperate calls for anyone with even a scrap of information to come forward. The main hotline stayed front and center, 1800 call FBI, the same number that's been promoted since day one. They pushed it in every briefing, every press release, every social post from the official accounts. If you saw something unusual that night, if you have dashcam footage, if you overheard a conversation that felt off, please call. They even set up a dedicated email tip line and reminded people they could submit anonymously through tips. FB.gov if they were worried about being identified. The messaging got more specific over time. In one March update, the sheriff said something like, "We're especially interested in anything from the early morning hours of February 1. Vehicles, people on foot, odd behavior in or around Catalina Foothills." They asked for Ring, Nest, or any other home security footage from that window, even if it seemed boring at the time. They wanted cell phone videos from drivers passing through, security cam stills from nearby businesses that open early. Anything that might show a car lingering or a person walking where they shouldn't. It wasn't vague. They were painting a clear picture of the gaps they still had. The perimeter movement, the possible staging areas, the routes in and out. Someone knows about trios talks. That's the quiet hope behind every plea. If this really was planned by people who knew each other, long conversations over band practice, family dinners, casual hangouts, then someone outside that tight circle might have overheard a snippet, seen a tense moment, or noticed a change in behavior. A friend who heard Evans complain about money, a coworker who saw Tommaso distracted, a neighbor who caught Annie looking worried weeks before. The authorities aren't saying, "We suspect the family or friends," but the repeated calls for tips about conversations or odd discussions hint they're fishing for exactly that. The offhand remark that suddenly makes sense in hindsight. The idea that one person out there might hold the missing piece, just waiting for the courage to call, it keeps the whole thing from feeling completely hopeless. I gotta be honest, this pulls at heartstrings. Every time the sheriff or an FBI spokesperson stands up and says, "Please keep calling," you can feel the exhaustion and the genuine plea underneath. These are people who have been living this case 24/7, staring at the same footage, the same dead-end reports, knowing an 84-year-old woman with a pacemaker is still missing. They're not too proud to admit they need the public's eyes and ears. The vulnerability in that ask, "We don't have it yet, but you might." It's raw. And when they remind people, "Your tip could be the one that brings her home," it's impossible not to feel the weight. This isn't a press conference. It's a community begging for help to save one of its own. Overwhelmed by volume. That's the brutal trade-off. The more they beg, the more tips flood in, good, bad, crazy, malicious. By March the total was well past 19,000 and climbing. Most are junk, misidentified people, dream visions, trolls sending fake coordinates. Sorting through that avalanche takes manpower away from chasing real leads. The task force has to triage constantly. High-priority tips get immediate follow-up, low ones get logged for later. But every false lead still costs time, still pulls someone off the line they're actually working. The sheriff acknowledged it once. "We appreciate every call, but hoaxes and misinformation slow us down." Yet they keep asking, because the alternative, going silent and hoping something breaks internally, feels worse. The emotion here is this strange mix of community solidarity and quiet despair. Strangers across the country, across the world even, picking up the phone because they saw Savannah on TV or read about Nancy's health struggles. Regular people wanting to help an elderly woman they've never met. It's beautiful in a way, and heartbreaking because so much of it leads nowhere. The hotline stays open, the pleas keep coming, and still no one has called in with the piece that ends it. Drop your thoughts. Does the constant call for public tips make you feel more connected to the case, like the community really could solve this? Or does the overwhelming volume of tips make it seem like the authorities are grasping at straws? Let me know down below. This part shows how much still depends on one right phone call. But wait, Nancy alive theory. Because even as they beg for tips, the sheriff and FBI keep repeating the same hopeful line, "We believe she's still alive." Let's talk about why they're holding on to that belief and what it means for how long this could drag on next. This keeps the emotional stakes sky high every single day. What do these ongoing public calls leave you feeling about the chances of a break? Tell me. That's when sheriff says yes. In every long, drawn-out missing person case, there's this one question that hangs over everything else like a shadow: is she still alive? And the sheriff, the guy who sees the files every day, who talks to the task force, who knows what evidence they actually have, has been consistent on this since the early days. In March 2026 briefings, he said it straight. "We have no evidence that Nancy has been harmed. We believe she is still alive." He didn't say it with wild optimism or false certainty. He said it like it was the working assumption based on what they've seen so far. No body, no blood. No signs of a struggle that ended in violence right there in the house. That's not proof, but it's enough for them to hold the line publicly. The lack of proof of harm is the thin thread they're clinging to. No crime scene soaked in blood, no discarded clothing with bullet holes, no witness who heard screams or gunshots. The entry was clean, camera tampered, possibly internet cut, but no broken glass, no pry marks, no chaos left behind. Whatever happened, it happened quietly. That silence lets them say, alive. Without lying. They keep repeating it in every update. Our belief is that she's still out there. It's not just words to keep hope alive. It's the absence of the worst evidence that lets them say it at all. If planned by insiders, kept safe for ransom. That's the dark flip side that creeps in when you think too long about it. If this was orchestrated by someone who knows her, someone close enough to time it perfectly, to know her vulnerabilities, to get in without force, then keeping her alive makes cold strategic sense. Dead bodies are loud, they trigger massive manhunts, forensics teams, no turning back. Alive, she's leverage. Maybe for money. Even after the fake ransom notes flooded in, a real demand could come quietly later. Or maybe for something else, time to move assets, pressure the family into decisions. Wait out a probate clock. The $1 million reward the family put up. It could be the exact incentive an insider needs to think, I can still cash out and walk. No proof any of this is happening, zero leaks, no credible ransom contact announced, but the possibility sits there like poison. If she's being held by someone who planned this, alive, doesn't mean safe, it means useful. This is the part that keeps me up. Thinking about Nancy, 84, pacemaker ticking, meds she needs every day, mobility already limited, somewhere unknown, maybe cold, maybe scared, maybe too weak to fight. The sheriff believes she's alive, and I want to believe it too, but the math of her condition doesn't lie. Every day, without her pills, without medical monitoring, without basic care, the odds shrink. Heart rhythm could falter, infection could set in, dehydration could hit fast. The longer this drags, the thinner that hope gets. And yet the sheriff keeps saying it. The family keeps pleading, the task force keeps working. It's this fragile balance between clinging to possibility and staring at the reality of time working against her. Really hard to sit with. Hope feels like the only decent thing left to hold on to, but it's starting to feel fragile. No proof of life. That's the brutal counterweight. No video of her holding today's newspaper, no phone call with her voice saying, I'm okay. No witness who saw her alive after February 1. The belief she's alive rests entirely on the absence of evidence she's not. No body recovered, no crime scene indicating immediate death, no credible claim from someone who ended her life. But absence of proof isn't proof of absence. It's just quiet. And quiet in a case like this can mean anything. She's being held carefully, she's too weak to make contact. Or the worst happened and they haven't found her yet. The sheriff won't say, We have confirmation she's alive. Because they don't. They say, we believe. Because that's what the evidence, or lack of it, allows. The emotion here is this constant push-pull. Hope because the sheriff won't bury her yet. Fear because every day that passes without a sign makes survival harder to picture. Thinking about Nancy, this woman who should have been safe in her own home, possibly still breathing somewhere, possibly suffering, possibly waiting for someone to find her, it just sits heavy. The sheriff's words give a lifeline, but they're thin, and thin lifelines snap if you're not careful. What do you think? Does the sheriff's repeated, "Ooh, believe she's alive," give you real hope that there's still time? Or does the complete lack of any proof of life sign make it feel like wishful thinking that's getting harder to hold on to? Drop your thoughts in the comments. This question keeps me up more than almost anything else in the case. At the same time, media criticism. Because while the sheriff holds the line on hope, local outlets and some national voices have started calling out the unequal attention this case is getting compared to others. Let's go there next. This keeps reminding me how the story itself becomes part of the story. What does the alive belief do to your emotions right now? Let me know down below. The crazy thing is, local papers call out bias. You know, when a case like this stays in the headlines for weeks, national morning shows, viral FBI videos, $1 million reward, it starts feeling like the story itself becomes part of the investigation. Around mid to late February 2026, right as the neighborhood was still locked down and YouTubers were swarming, the Arizona Daily Star and a couple other Tucson outlets started running pieces that weren't just recaps. They were calling out the elephant in the room. Why does this disappearance get wall-to-wall coverage while others barely make the local news? One editorial put it bluntly, Nancy Guthrie is someone's mother, grandmother, neighbor, just like dozens of other missing people in Pima County every year. But because her daughter is Savannah Guthrie, the national spotlight is blinding. That attention isn't justice, it's inequality. They quoted stats how many elderly or indigenous or low-income people go missing in Arizona annually with almost zero media pickup. No reward funds pouring in, no task force announcements, no celebrities pleading on air. The piece didn't attack Savannah personally, it attacked the system. Celebrity proximity buys oxygen. Regular families beg for scraps of coverage while this one gets helicopters and prime-time segments. What gets me is the unfairness. Reading those columns, you feel this gut punch of truth. A black woman in her 60s vanished from South Tucson last year, no national segment, no $1 million reward, barely a blip beyond a short police release. An indigenous elder went missing up north around the same time Nancy did. Local tribal news covered it, but crickets nationally. Then Nancy, white, affluent neighborhood, famous daughter, and suddenly it's wall-to-wall. The local writers weren't saying, don't cover Nancy. They were saying, why not cover them too? Why does one mother's face become a national symbol while others fade into statistics? It's not jealousy. It's exhaustion with a pattern we've seen forever. Distracts from real leads on family. That's the sharper edge some of the criticism took. A few opinion pieces and reader comments wondered out loud, does all this celebrity glare actually help the investigation, or does it pull focus away from quieter, closer angles? When every camera is pointed at Savannah's tears on the Today Show, when every YouTuber is camped outside Annie's house yelling questions, does that make witnesses less likely to come forward? Does it make someone who overheard a family conversation think twice before calling the tip line? Or does it flood investigators with so much celebrity-driven noise that real, local leads get buried? The critics weren't accusing the family, they were pointing at the media ecosystem. Fame amplifies everything, including distraction. Helps with resources. And here's the flip side, the one the sheriff and FBI would probably nod at if they were being candid. That national attention did bring resources. The $1 million reward didn't come from thin air. Savannah's platform helped raise it. The FBI's early involvement, the task force ramp up. The constant pressure on local officials to show progress, a lot of that momentum comes from the spotlight. Without the celebrity hook, this might have stayed a quiet local missing person file longer. More eyes mean more tips, even if most are junk, more funding pressure, more accountability on the agencies. The unfairness cuts both ways. The case gets disproportionate help because of who her daughter is, but that help might be the only reason it's moving at all. The social thinking here is heavy. It forces you to ask, what makes one life newsworthy? Why do some disappearances become symbols of hope and others become footnotes? The local papers weren't trying to diminish Nancy's suffering, they were trying to widen the lens. Every time I read one of those pieces, I feel this mix of guilt for following so closely and frustration that the system only wakes up when a famous name is attached. It's not fair. And fairness shouldn't be a prerequisite for getting help when someone's mother vanishes. Let me know, does the media inequality criticism feel like a valid call out to you? That cases like Nancy's get too much oxygen while others get none? Or do you think the extra attention is justified and actually helps push the investigation forward? Drop your thoughts in the comments. This broader context keeps hitting me every time I see another national segment. Here's the thing, lab disputes. Because while the media was debating coverage bias, behind the scenes there was tension between the sheriff's office and the FBI over where evidence was being tested, private labs versus Quantico. Let's go into what that friction looked like and why it mattered next. This keeps showing how even the official side has its own battles. What does the inequality angle leave you thinking about how cases get prioritized? Tell me down below. This is important. Sheriff vs FBI on labs. You know, behind every high-profile case like this, there's usually some tension between agencies, egos, protocols, different priorities, but when it spills into public view, it starts feeling like cracks in the foundation. In mid-March 2026, right around the time the task force was fully ramped up, local reporters picked up on something that had been simmering quietly. A disagreement over where certain evidence, especially DNA from the gloves and any other trace samples, was being processed. The sheriff's office had sent some of the initial items to a private forensic lab instead of routing everything straight to the FBI's Quantico facility. This wasn't hidden. It came out in response to questions about timelines and why certain results were taking longer than expected. Private labs can sometimes turn things around faster on specific tests. Touch DNA extraction, low copy amplification, especially if they're local or contracted for overflow. But Quantico is the gold standard for federal cases, massive databases, specialized protocols for CODIS uploads, tighter chain of custody controls. Choosing private over federal raised eyebrows immediately. I dug into this, really frustrating. I went back through the sheriff's pressers and the few leaked emails or statements that made it to local news sites. One sheriff spokesperson said something like, "We're using accredited labs best suited for the evidence type to expedite results." Sounds reasonable on the surface. Don't wait in the federal backlog if a private place can handle it quicker. But then FBI sources, anonymous, of course, pushed back in background briefings. All abduction-related evidence should go through Quantico for consistency and national database integration. The implication was clear: private labs might be faster, but they don't feed directly into the same systems, and there's always a risk of chain of custody questions later if it ever goes to trial. Delaying to protect locals like Evans. That's the suspicion that bubbled up fast online and in some opinion columns. If the sheriff's office was deliberately routing samples away from federal oversight, was it to slow-walk results that might point too close to home? Evans is local, known in the community, has ties through the band. A Quantico hit on his relatives via genealogy could be explosive. A private lab might lose a partial match or take longer to report something inconvenient. No proof of that, not a single leaked report or whistleblower saying, "We were told to bury it," but the optics are terrible. Why risk any perception of shielding when the FBI lab is right there and built for exactly this kind of case? Denied by sheriff. The response was swift and firm. In the next briefing, I think late March, the sheriff addressed it head-on. There is no effort to delay or obstruct any testing. We are using multiple accredited labs to maximize efficiency, and all results are shared fully with our federal partners. He called the suggestions of protectionism baseless and harmful to the investigation. The FBI didn't contradict publicly. They stayed quiet on the specifics, but the tension was there. Private lab results were still coming back slow on some items, and no big genealogy breakthrough had been announced from either side. The denial was categorical, but denials don't erase the question, why private at all when federal resources are on tap? The frustration here is thick. You want to believe the agencies are aligned, working as one team to bring Nancy home. But when you see friction over something as basic as where to send DNA, something that could literally name a suspect, it breeds doubt. Is it really about speed? Or is someone worried about what Quantico might find? The whole thing feels like unnecessary static in a case that already has too much noise. Does this make sense? Does the choice of private labs over Quantico feel like a legitimate efficiency move to you? Or does it raise enough red flags that you wonder if someone's trying to control the pace or the narrative? Drop your thoughts in the comments. This behind-the-scenes friction makes the whole investigation feel shakier than it should. And then, wrapping the journey. Because we've walked through so much. From the night she vanished to the task force, the pleas, the warnings, the inequalities, it's time to step back and look at what this all adds up to. Hang on, we're heading into reflection next. This keeps showing how even the official machinery has its own friction. What does the lab dispute leave you feeling about trust in the process right now? Let me know down below. Looking back at all this. We've walked through a lot together, from that quiet drop-off after dinner to the grainy footage of someone tampering with the camera, from the flood of fake ransom notes to the sheriff standing up and saying, "This could happen again." We've dug into the task force ramp-up, the pleas that keep getting more direct, the tip lines drowning in volume, even the behind-the-scenes friction over labs. And somewhere in the middle of it all, Nancy's still gone. No big arrest, no safe return, no closure. Just this growing pile of pieces that don't quite snap together yet. From timeline to motives, so many questions. The night starts normal, family dinner, drive home, good night, then jumps to 1:45 a.m. with a gun in frame, and nearly an hour of careful work on the camera. No forced entry, no chaos left behind. That alone keeps pulling me back. How does someone get in and out so cleanly? Then you layer on the utility box damage, the perimeter vehicles caught on Ring at dawn, the backpack that's everywhere at Walmart, the short-barreled gun held so calmly. Motive whispers in the background, money, inheritance pressure, vulnerability exploited, but nothing screams loud enough to name anyone. The sheriff says targeted, believes she's alive, but won't say why or who. Every answer spawns 3 more questions. Trio's ties, coincidence or more. That's the knot that won't loosen. Tommaso last to see her, Evans the longtime bandmate, with that old theft record echoing the careful tampering, Annie the quiet daughter, whose one plea video feels both raw and restrained. The band practices since 2007, the shared local knowledge, the way routines could have been mapped out over beers and late-night rehearsals. Is it just bad luck that the people closest orbit so tightly around the gaps in the timeline? Or is the familiarity the whole point, the reason no stranger needed to force anything? No smoking gun, no leaked confession, no forensic tie that seals it. Just proximity that feels too convenient, too layered, too hard to wave away. What struck me was the layers. This isn't a simple grab and run. It's patient, planned, almost quiet. The tampering takes time, the getaway routes look scouted, the lack of violence suggests control rather than panic. Then you add the human side, Nancy's pacemaker ticking, her daily meds, her limited mobility, Every delay increases the risk she's facing. The family's $1 million offer. It's never too late. Please. The sheriff's caution about another strike. It all stacks up into this heavy, complicated picture. Hope keeps flickering because there's no proof she's gone, but fear grows because time isn't kind to someone in her condition. Case open, no conclusions. That's the hardest part to swallow. Task force full-time, thousands of tips, DNA genealogy grinding away, vehicles under review, and still no one in cuffs, no confirmed suspect, no safe return announced. The sheriff believes she's alive, the family keeps pleading, the public keeps calling in, but the silence from whoever has her is deafening. It's this limbo where everything is moving and nothing is resolved. Really frustrating when you step back and see how much effort is pouring in, yet the core mystery stays locked. Looking at it all together, what hits hardest is how ordinary everything started, a family dinner, a drive home, and how quickly it turned into this sprawling, painful thing. The doubts pile up. Was it someone who knew her routines too well? Was money quietly the driver? Could one phone call still change everything? Or are we watching time run out while the answers stay just out of reach? What do you guys think happened? After walking through all these pieces with me, the timeline, the footage, the warnings, the pleas, the inequalities, the waiting, where does your gut land? Random stranger. Insider who knew too much. Something else entirely. Drop your theories in the comments, no judgment, just honest thoughts. I'm reading every one, and honestly, hearing what you see in this mess helps me process it too. The problem is, lessons learned. Because cases like this don't just end when or if they solve, they leave marks. Hang on, we're heading into what this whole journey teaches us next. This has been heavy, guys. What are you carrying away from it so far? Let me know down below. So, this really hits different when you realize, after walking through every layer of this thing, the quiet drop-off that turned into a nightmare, the careful tampering on camera, the flood of fake leads, the $1 million pleas, the sheriff saying she could still be alive, while warning folks to stay sharp, you start to feel the weight, not just of Nancy's story, but of what it says about all of us. This isn't some distant horror that happens in bad neighborhoods or to people who should have known better. This is a nice, gated feeling part of Tosin, a retired woman in her own home, family nearby, cameras up, everything that's supposed to make you safe, and it still wasn't enough. Vulnerabilities in safe areas, family trusts. That's the part that keeps echoing. We spend so much time thinking safety is about locks, alarms, good lighting, living in the right zip code. But Nancy had all that. Upscale Catalina foothills, no crime wave, a Nest camera at the door, neighbors close enough to hear something if it got loud. And yet someone got in, or got her out, without a single busted window or obvious sign of struggle. That tells you the real weak point isn't always the hardware. It's the routines we all have. The predictable hours when we're alone, the people we let close because we trust them, the way we stop double-checking the door when it's just family dropping by. Trust is beautiful, until it's exploited, and once you see that in a case like this, you can't unsee it in your own life. Teaches us to question close ties. Not in a paranoid way, not distrust everyone, but in a quiet, awake way. Who knows your schedule better than the people you love? Who knows exactly when you take your meds, when you're most vulnerable, where the cameras point? The people closest to us hold the map to our softest spots. Most of the time that's fine, it's what family and deep friendships are for. But every once in a while, it isn't. This case reminds us that betrayal doesn't always come from strangers in ski masks. Sometimes it wears a familiar face, speaks in a voice you've heard at every holiday table, shows up because they already have the key, literal or not. I gotta be honest, changed my view on abductions. Before digging into this, I used to think most stranger abductions were chaotic, impulse, panic, mistakes left everywhere. This one feels different, patient, controlled. No mess, no noise, no obvious trail. That makes it scarier in a way, because it means someone thought it through. Planned the timing, the entry, the exit. And if that kind of thinking can happen in a safe neighborhood to someone with family nearby, then none of us are as insulated as we tell ourselves. It's not about living in fear, it's about living aware. Check the cameras, vary your routine a little. Ask, who would know I'm alone tonight? Not because everyone's a threat, but because one person might be. Not preachy, just thoughts. I'm not here to lecture or tell you how to live. This is just what this journey has done to me. It's made me slower to assume. That could never happen here. It's made me look at the people in my own circle, the ones who know my habits, my weaknesses, and feel grateful they're good people, while also feeling a tiny, uncomfortable awareness that gratitude isn't the same as certainty. Cases like Nancy's don't just leave a hole where a person used to be, they leave questions that ripple outward. About trust, about safety, about how fragile, normal, really is. Drop your theories below. After everything we've walked through, what's your gut saying? Insider who knew too much? Stranger who got lucky? Something else we haven't even touched? No right or wrong answers here, just what you're carrying away from this. I read every one, and honestly, seeing what sticks with you helps me make sense of what sticks with me. This is where we look ahead, because even with all these layers and doubts and open questions, the story isn't finished. Nancy's still missing, the task force is still working, tips are still coming in. Hang on, we're going to step back one last time, reflect on what this has taught us, and then leave the door open for whatever comes next. This has been heavy, guys. Thanks for staying with me through it. What are you taking from this journey so far? Let me know down below. At the same time, what could have happened? After digging through every layer we've got, the timeline that starts so ordinary and turns so dark, the footage that shows patience instead of panic, the warnings, the pleas, the tip floods, the lab friction, you end up right back at the same place. We still don't know. Not for sure. So let's just sit with the open-ended theories for a minute. No forcing conclusions, no pretending we've cracked it. Just the possibilities that keep floating around when you stare at this long enough. Maybe random, maybe planned, house key. One version is still the classic stranger abduction, someone cruising upscale neighborhoods, looking for easy marks, elderly, alone, predictable routines. Sees the house, sees the lights go out after the drop-off, takes a chance. But that version keeps running into walls. No forced entry. Tampering that takes almost an hour. No mess, no noise, no obvious grab and run energy. Random people usually panic, leave traces, make mistakes. This felt too clean, too timed. So the other version keeps pulling stronger, planned. Someone who knew exactly when she'd be alone after dinner, knew the camera placement, knew the utility box was a weak point, knew her health made quick compliance likely. And if it's planned, the house, that one big quiet asset, keeps coming back into frame. Not because we have proof of a will fight or money talks, but because it's the obvious thing that changes hands when someone like Nancy is suddenly not there. The key isn't always literal. Sometimes it's just knowing the value sitting inside those walls. Evans as executor, Annie beneficiary. That's one of the darker threads people whisper. If this was about accelerating something, inheritance, control, liquidity, Annie would be the natural focal point as eldest daughter. Tommaso, married in, would be right beside her in any legal or practical decisions. And Evans, the longtime friend who only met Nancy once but knows the family orbit inside out. Could he be the outside piece? The one who handles the dirty work while staying far enough from the inner circle to look disconnected. Executor isn't even the right word technically. But you get the idea. Someone positioned to benefit indirectly, maybe through a promise, a cut, a favor repaid. Again, zero evidence, no leaked documents, no public money trail. But the trio's ties are tight enough, long enough, that the mind keeps drifting there. If it was about the house or what comes after, keeping her alive for a while makes twisted sense. Time to move pieces, wait out suspicion, cash in quietly. This is the part I couldn't get past, endless possibilities. Every theory has holes big enough to drive through. Random feels too sloppy for how clean it was. Planned feels too intimate for a total stranger. Insider feels too obvious for no one to have cracked yet. Outsider feels too lucky. You can build a case for almost anything if you squint hard enough: a hired hand, a debt gone wrong, a mental health spiral, a cult thing. People have floated that online too. The task force is still grinding, the genealogy is still running, the vehicles are still under review, but no one has stepped forward to say, this is it. So we're left with this swirl: hope because there's no proof she's gone, fear because time keeps ticking, doubt because every lead has a counter lead. Awaiting updates. That's where we sit. March 2026 turned into late March. Then April loomed, and still the same refrain: active investigation, believe she's alive, keep calling the tip line. No arrest, no safe return. Just waiting. And waiting in a case like this isn't neutral, it erodes. It makes every theory feel a little more possible, and a little less likely at the same time. Am I the only one? Does the endless swirl of theories, random vs planned, insider vs outsider, money vs something else, leave you feeling more lost than ever? Or does it make you lean harder toward one explanation that just won't let go? Drop your theories below. Seriously, after all this, what's the version that makes the most sense to you right now? I read every one, and honestly, hearing where your head lands helps keep this real. But wait, personal close. Because before we leave this journey, I want to step back one last time and talk about what this whole thing has done to me, the doubts it left, the hope it won't let die, the way it changed how I see trust and safety. Hang on, we're going there next. This has been a long road, guys. What are you carrying away from it? Let me know down below. The crazy thing is, this case sticks with me. You know, I've followed a lot of these over the years: disappearances, cold cases, abductions that drag on, but something about Nancy Guthrie just won't let go. Maybe it's her age. 84. Not old in the way we sometimes dismiss old, as frail and distant, but old enough that every day she's missing feels like time is stealing something irreplaceable. She's someone's mom, someone's grandma, the person who probably still remembers every birthday without needing reminders, who kept traditions alive even when her body started slowing down. Thinking about her out there somewhere, pacemaker ticking, meds running out, alone in a way no one should ever be, it just sits heavy in my chest. So real. And the family pain, God, that's the part that keeps coming back. Savannah on national TV, holding it together while the whole country watches her voice crack. Annie in that one quiet plea video, saying, "It's never too late," like she's trying to convince herself as much as anyone else. The $1 million reward they put up, that's not abstract money, that's everything they've got. Laid on the table in the hope someone will care enough to bring her home. I can't imagine what it feels like to wake up every morning knowing your mom is gone, knowing the world is watching, knowing most of the tips flooding in our junk or cruel hoaxes. That kind of sustained grief, public and private at the same time, it hurts to even think about. What gets me is the wait. Every update that says, still active, still believe she's alive, tips still coming in. It sounds hopeful on paper. But after weeks, months, it starts to feel like a slow bleed. The task force is full-time, the genealogy is grinding, the vehicles are under review, and yet, silence. No arrest, no safe return. No proof of life beyond the absence of proof she's gone. That limbo is brutal. You want to believe the sheriff when he says there's no evidence of harm, but you also know her health, the pacemaker, the daily meds, the mobility struggles, doesn't wait for investigators to catch up. Every day that passes without a sign is another day the odds tilt the wrong way, and still they keep saying, alive. I want to hold on to that. I do, but the wait, it gnaws. If ties proven, devastating. That's the shadow that won't leave. If it turns out to be someone in that close circle, Tommaso who dropped her off, Evans the longtime friend, Annie who knew her routines better than anyone, the betrayal would be on another level. Not just a crime, a shattering of the most basic trust we build with family and friends. The people who should have been her safest place turning into the reason she's gone. I can't even fully picture the fallout for the family left behind. The guilt, the second guessing, the way every memory would get rewritten in hindsight. It's the kind of devastation that doesn't heal easy. And yet, the possibility keeps lingering, because the pieces fit too neatly sometimes. No proof, no smoking gun, but the questions don't die. I gotta be honest, this one has changed how I carry these stories. I used to be able to step back, analyze, move on to the next. This one stays. Maybe because Nancy feels so much like someone's real mom, not a statistic, not a headline, but a person who loved her family, who trusted her world to keep her safe. And when that trust breaks, when the safe place becomes the danger zone, it reminds me how fragile everything is. Not in a paranoid way, but in a quiet, awake way. We all have routines. We all have people who know them. We all assume tomorrow will look like today. Until it doesn't. What do you think? After everything we've walked through, the footage, the warnings, the pleas, the waiting, does this case leave you with the same heavy feeling, like it's more than just another mystery? Does it make you look closer at your own circle, your own routines? Or does it still feel distant enough to set aside? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'm reading every one. This one's been sitting with me different. And hearing where it sits with you, it helps. Here's the thing, call to action. Because if there's one thing this journey has made clear, it's that silence helps no one. If you know something, even if it's small, even if you're not sure, the tip line is still open. 1-800-CALL FBI, tips, FB, Gov. Anonymous if you need it. Nancy's family is still waiting. The task force is still working. And maybe, just maybe, one more person stepping up is what ends the wait. If this case has stuck with you too, don't just carry it, do something with it. Share the number. Keep the story alive. Because someone out there might be holding the piece we all need. This is important. We've come a long way together through this. Thanks for staying with me, for thinking it through, for caring enough to wonder what happened to an 84-year-old woman who should have been safe. I'll keep watching for updates. If anything breaks, you'll hear it here first. Until then, take care of the people you love, and maybe check the locks one more time tonight. Appreciate you guys so much for being here. What are you taking away from this? Let me know down below. Stay safe out there. Now, your turn, guys. You know, we've spent all this time walking through the pieces together, the quiet night that turned into something awful, the footage that shows way too much patience, the warnings about someone possibly striking again, the family's raw pleas, the tip lines buried under thousands of calls, the sheriff holding on to hope while admitting the risks, and still, Nancy's out there, somewhere. Or at least that's what we have to keep believing. But here's where I stop talking for a minute and hand it over to you. Because after everything we've unpacked, I want to hear what's been rattling around in your heads. Share theories on Tommaso, Annie, Evans, lay it out. Is it the three of them somehow tangled up in this, the last person to see her alive, the daughter who knows her routines better than anyone, the longtime friend who's been in the orbit for almost 2 decades? Or is that too obvious, too convenient? Maybe one of them is the key and the others are just caught in the gravity. Or maybe none of them are. Maybe it's someone completely outside that circle who got lucky or got inside info some other way. No theory is too wild here. I've heard everything from, it's a hired hand to speed up inheritance, to, it's a random predator who picked the wrong night, to, someone from the band world with a grudge we haven't even touched. Throw it all out. What's the version that won't let you go? House motive real? That's one that keeps coming back for a lot of people. If this was about accelerating something, money, control, Getting out from under pressure, does the house feel like the center of gravity? Or is that just us projecting, because it's the biggest tangible thing left behind? Could the motive be simpler? Jealousy, resentment, something personal that built up over years. Or bigger, a pattern we haven't seen yet because the sheriffs could strike again. Warning is still echoing. Be honest. What's the thread that ties it together for you, or the one that keeps unraveling no matter how hard you pull? I'll keep digging. Appreciate you. Seriously, thank you for sticking with me through this. You've been here for every twist, every doubt, every time I said, "This hits different," and meant it. Your comments, your theories, the way you've pushed back or doubled down, it's kept this conversation alive in a way I didn't expect. I'll keep watching for any update, new footage, a genealogy hit, a tip that actually sticks, anything that moves the needle. If something breaks, you'll hear it here first. And if it doesn't, we'll keep asking questions together. That's what this is about. No rush to conclude. We don't have to land on one answer tonight, or tomorrow, or next week. Cases like this don't resolve because we want them to. They resolve when the truth finally shows up. Until then, it's okay to sit in the mess of it all, the hope, the fear, the unfairness, the waiting. It's okay to not know. But it's not okay to stop caring. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Does this make sense to you? What's your theory right now? Who's the one person or motive that keeps circling back in your mind? Be as detailed or as gut level as you want. No judgment here, just real talk. And if you're reading this later and something new has broken, come back and tell us. We'll pick right up where we left off. That's when we end open, because this story isn't closed. Nancy's still missing. The task force is still working. The family is still waiting. And so are we. So let's leave the door cracked. Keep the conversation going. Keep the tip line in your back pocket. Keep hoping, even when it's hard. Thanks for being here, guys. Truly. This journey meant something because you were on it with me. Stay safe out there. Hug the people you love a little tighter tonight. And if you know something, anything, call 1-800-CALL FBI TIPS, FB. Gov. Anonymous if you need it. I'll see you in the comments, and I'll see you when there's more to talk about. Appreciate you so much for watching, for thinking, for caring. Take care. So, I gotta be honest, guys, I'll keep you posted as soon as I find out more. Right now, as of mid-March 2026, this case is sitting at 41 days. 41 days since Nancy walked through her front door, after that family dinner, since Tomaso drove away, since the lights went out and everything changed. 41 days of silence from whoever took her, 41 days of the task force grinding, 41 days of the family waking up to the same empty space where she used to be. And still, mysteries. No arrest. No confirmed suspect. No safe return. Just this long, heavy quiet that feels louder every single day. What next for the trio? That's the question that won't leave me alone. Tomaso, Annie, Evans, three people whose lives were already intertwined for years before any of this happened. If nothing ever ties them directly, if the case stays open but never points their way, what happens to them? Do they go back to teaching classes, playing gigs, raising kids, while the internet keeps whispering their names forever? Or does one small break, a genealogy hit, a new witness, a tip that finally sticks, suddenly pull them back into the center? The sheriff cleared the family early, but clearance doesn't erase suspicion. Not online, not in people's heads. And if something does point closer, God, the fallout would be unimaginable. The kind of devastation that doesn't just end a case, it ends lives as they were. This journey, thanks for joining. Seriously. You guys stuck with me through every twist. From that first night timeline to the chilling sheriff warnings, from the $1 million pleas to the lab friction, from the neighborhood chaos to the endless wait on DNA results. You showed up in the comments, shared your theories, pushed back when something didn't sit right, kept asking the hard questions. That matters. This wasn't me talking at you. It was us sitting with it together, trying to make sense of something that still doesn't make sense. I appreciate every single one of you who watched, who thought about Nancy, who cared enough to wonder what happened to an 84-year-old woman who should have been safe. Really hits different realizing how fragile safety is. We build our lives thinking certain things are solid, our homes, our routines, the people closest to us. We install cameras, we lock doors, we live in good neighborhoods. We trust family and friends because that's what family and friends are for. And then a case like this comes along and quietly reminds us none of it's bulletproof. One night, one decision, one betrayal, and everything can unravel. Not because the world is full of monsters, but because even the smallest crack in trust can let something terrible slip through. It's not about living scared, it's about living awake. Checking in on the people we love. Noticing when something feels off. Speaking up if we see something that doesn't sit right, because sometimes that's the only thing standing between normal and nightmare. What do you guys think happened? After all this, the footage, the motives that keep circling, the hope the sheriff keeps holding, the silence that won't break, what's your gut saying right now? Insider who knew too much. Stranger who got lucky. Something we haven't even touched yet. Drop your theories below. Be as detailed as you want, as raw as you feel. No judgment here, just real talk. I'll read every one, and if something shifts in the case, we'll come back and pick right up where we left off. Appreciate you guys so much for watching. Stay tuned. This story isn't over. Nancy's still missing. The family is still waiting. The task force is still working. And as long as there's breath left in this, there's still a chance. I'll be back the second there's anything new. Until then, take care of each other. Hug the people you love a little longer tonight, and keep asking questions. That's how we keep hope alive. Thanks for being here. Truly. See you soon.